For centuries, capitalists ruled the world. They crafted a dystopian hellscape and commodified everything. Life, democracy, even the planet. Facing extinction, a rebel group emerged to challenge the capitalists. The online left, a group of deviants, Zoomers, and millennial misfits devoted to shitposting their way to a better world, one tweet at a time. Will they put aside their hatred of one another to defeat their capitalist common enemy? Find out now on Dystopian Times.
Witness destruction of everything that you known. While others chase the elite, we stand alone. Dark days coming, regardless, we never running. People still suffering, and everybody's wondering who's gonna lead the charge, who's gonna be the choice. Rooted from the bottom so the underdog can have a voice. Foundation, based in reality. Power to the people, people power, not a fallacy. Call it what you want it, but I know you hear us coming. Eyes wide open, cause you see we're on to something. The future on the line. We're here to redefine. Political powers recognize these dystopian times.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 4th episode of Dystopian Times. My name is Mike Figueredo. This is July 28th, 2021. And I have an absolutely incredible lineup of really great folks today. We have a lot of topics to get to. We have a phenomenal new featured content creator. This is going to be an incredible show, folks. So I hope that you're ready for it. Again, I'm sorry. Every single week I'm late because I have to go to the bathroom before the stream starts. That's just the way I am. So I apologize. But first and foremost, I want to bring on the guest before I chat anymore. So without further ado, I found this individual not too long ago, and immediately I became a huge fan. They were playing Animal Crossing, and this person is basically incredible. Folks, it's LumiRue. Lumi, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of pick your brain about various things.
I am really excited to be here. We've got a really cool lineup. I didn't expect to see so many awesome people in one room. So excited to meet a few new people, including you. So I've got to see your show a few times, and I definitely enjoy it. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Likewise. And I love the red aesthetic. Like you have the RGB just on point. I love it.
Thank you. I thought it fit the dystopian times kind of feel.
It really does. And that's what I tried to do with like the overgrown like plants in the studio, kind of dystopian apocalyptic. I don't think people get that vibe, but I kind of like it anyway.
I love it. I noticed that and I was like, dang, you pulled that off.
Well, thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. So the next guest is another person who I just discovered. Another Twitch streamer, housing advocate. I've actually rated this individual on Twitch before because they're incredible. Folks, it's Amy. Amy, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to pick your brain because we have a really important deadline coming up, and you're like the perfect person to talk to about this because you basically live and breathe housing, and I'm really excited to talk to you about this.
I'm really looking forward to talk about it as well. I'm assuming you're talking about the moratorium on evictions, and right. I just submitted a Substack article about it, so I'm happy to go into broader detail about this.
Excellent.
I'm locked and loaded.
We'll share that as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put a link in the description box to that. And if you're watching on Means TV, we'll blast it later on. So don't worry. Okay, folks. The next individual is representing another country, the United Kingdom. I've been a fan of the Kavernacle for a very long time, and he's back on the show for the first time, Dystopian Times. But Kav, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I want to say that Mike said just before the stream, I'm his favorite British person that's ever lived, basically. Just in case you're one of his British friends who thinks he likes you better. No, I'm super happy to be on. Like Mike, I followed you for a long time before I was on the first time, like 2 years ago or something. And yeah, just shout out to this show. I was telling you before, super high budget. Nice to see so many like new faces. Of course, I don't even understand Twitch, so it's nice to see like 2 Twitch streamers I've never seen. So yeah, lots of good topics, and hopefully I can keep up as a British person talking about mainly American politics. But I think I'll be okay.
Cab, I will say you know more about American politics than 90% of Americans, so you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, folks. Well, the next guest is actually a bit of a duo. You know this individual, newer to indie media. I've brought this person on my program probably like 10,000 times because they're incredible. I have Jen and her co-host, Peter. Welcome to the show, folks.
Hi, thank you for having us on this.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you. Peter actually is going to be changing personalities throughout the stream.
Well,
I'm hoping, Peter.
Depending on the topic, yes.
He's got a few. He does
Depending on the
4.
topic.
Yeah.
I've got 4 different ones I could play for you.
Yeah, there you go. Just depends.
Okay, if we can get through like all of those in the stream, that would be incredible. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, if you've never tuned into generational change, first of all, fix that. But second of all, Peter does such hilarious impressions. The Trump one is probably my favorite. The Biden one is like a close second.
See, I find Biden kind of bland and figuratively, literally, like all across the board. But like, I just, yeah, it's interesting. But I'm glad to know that you think he got that one.
Oh yeah. The Bernie one is so real that it actually triggers me a little bit. I will say that. So.
And I try, and what I try to do is not try to be, I try to. It's.
I love it when he's Bernie. I like him so much more.
Well, it's not that.
It's so much more gentle and nice.
I come from the New York, New Jersey area, so most of the famous actors are method actors. So when you put on the mask, you basically become that person. You can't just be like, whatever. No, it's like you got to think like Bernie. You got to think like Trump. You got to be them, and then that's what makes it even better.
Okay.
Well, Peter, I'm going to have to reach out to you to record some new outros for me because all the ones that I've had have been stale for a while. So we'll have to talk because I'm really excited to like have you do some I want more insulting ones of me, like the one of girly Mike Fettuccini. The Trump one is my favorite.
That's hilarious because I've never heard that, but he said it. You must have heard that somewhere.
Of course, he had a guy recording for a show.
It's like kind of like a running meme on my channel that my name is Mike Fettuccini and also I'm girly Mike Fettuccini because that's what Trump would call me if he knew I existed. That would be like his name for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right, folks. Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. So there's a very serious issue that I want everyone to pay attention to. Let me hide my bookmarks so we have a little bit more. There we go. So basically, the moratorium on evictions is set to expire at the end of this month. The CDC extended it for another 30 days. And now we're approaching a deadline. And it's a little bit worrying. So let me read this story here. This is from NBC News. They talk about one person's struggle and fear as to what's going to happen if her rent isn't actually paid. And then the article also goes into some more general analysis as to what's happening, what could possibly happen. Let me read some of this, and then we will go to the panel because I just want to give you some context. So in Jackson, Mississippi, Demia Burst worries about driving home from her housekeeping shift at a hotel and finding her life upended. Her apartment complex in North Jackson has already told her it wants her out. Burst, a mom of 3, fell behind on rent after she left her job as a certified nursing assistant to help her children with virtual school. Burst started asking Hinds County in April for help paying 2 to 3 months of back rent, but she questions whether any of the $25 billion Congress approved in December for emergency rental assistance will reach her landlord in time. And this story is a microcosm of a bigger issue because a lot of Americans currently are wondering what's going to happen come August 1st. I pray to God when I get home, my stuff's not sitting outside, Burst said. While Burst is seeking assistance locally, Mississippi's separate federally funded $186 million statewide program has faced its own trials. As of July 13th, the Mississippi Home Corporation, which oversees paying out the funds, had distributed $10 million or just about 6% of the money. The sparse spending isn't isolated to Mississippi. Only a fraction of the country's funds are expected to be distributed before the eviction moratorium expires at the end of July. NBC News contacted all 50 states and the District of Columbia about their emergency rental assistance programs. An analysis of responses from 41 states found that 26 of them, 26 states, had distributed less than 10% of their first allocations, although several programs had just begun distributing money in June. The reasons the aid hasn't reached frustrated landlords and nervous tenants are complex, from the inevitable stumbles that come with setting up new programs to software woes to varied degrees of hesitancy among states to sign off on payments without extensive documentation of need. What's clear is the fallout could be punishing for generations. So this is potentially catastrophic, and it's not like we haven't already had a housing crisis in the United States, but it's about to get a lot worse. So I wanted to ask Amy about the situation. Amy has been a long time housing advocate. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think can happen? Is there going to be another extension? Give us basically some general takeaways here.
I think it's going to be the biggest mistake of Joe Biden's tenure as president if he allows the moratorium to expire. During the Trump administration, the CDC went ahead and pulled rank because it was a public health crisis. And we are seeing a similar instance right now where it is to a public health crisis with the Delta variant leading to the number of cases that we saw in February of 2021. So this is gross negligence on all fronts. And basically, it is looking to be about 7% of total allocated funds for the first emergency rental assistance program, that's ER1, that has reached the hands of either tenants or landlords who were applying for assistance on behalf of their tenants. We're not even there with the second ERA funding that is around $22 billion. So with the amount of money that's currently in transit or unaccounted for, because states were left to their own devices to find the best or optimal program available, there has been a lot of delay in getting the money from the states to the applicants. To be honest, the Treasury Department hasn't even allocated its full funding for the first ERA program, which makes it seem highly unlikely that the government can feel comfortable or confident with the decision to go ahead and lift the ban on evictions when they have not even they haven't even fulfilled their obligations to providing the full amount of fundings to the states for the first program, much less the second. So what's going to maybe happen is the states that have extended their own statewide moratorium, they will offer those protections to their tenants. Tenants who are in states that do not have a state or a local eviction moratorium, they will be at risk for eviction. And the total at this juncture is looking to be somewhere between 7 and 10 million people who could be at risk for eviction, could be completely displaced from their homes, dispossessed during this new wave of Delta variants that's more deadly, more infectious. And it's really coming down to the CDC and the Biden administration, by extension, in their failures to understand the severity of what is happening right now. Unemployment is still incredibly low. People are being punished for being in the wrong sector, losing their jobs, and then at the mercy of the state to provide them with the funding that they applied for. They did all of the right procedures. They went through the proper channels. And I can't believe that the burden is disproportionately falling so heavily on tenants who literally did nothing wrong other than, experience unemployment and fall behind on the rent.
Yeah. I wanted to also ask Jen, because you're pretty involved in your community. What are the thoughts out in Florida? Because I know that you have a lot of people who are also wondering what's going to happen. I know somebody personally in Portland who has a lot of back rent that is due. And so what's going on in Florida?
It's really bad here. And we not only have a severe homeless problem, but we have a severe criminalization of homelessness problem.
Right.
So what we're seeing is, and this is, I think more prevalent in Miami-Dade, where they come and do sweeps, but they do it in Fort Lauderdale. They do it in Broward too. And so it's people not only have nowhere to go, but then they're being criminalized for having nowhere to go. So it's definitely a big problem. And we have, I think, what is it, the largest income inequality? So, our housing crisis is horrible. Nobody can afford to live here that works here. And it's really, really challenging on a good day. So we're going to see a lot of that 7 to 10 million people, or whatever the number is, are going to be down here. And it's a real problem. But I just wanted to say that the reason that these states aren't doing the funding, from what that article says, was all the bureaucracy and validating this and double checking that. And I just like to point out that basically what we're talking about is some sort of means testing situation that's going on. And had we just given everybody $2,000 a month in the beginning of this thing, then we wouldn't have to be wasting our time with sitting there means testing who can and should and could and what. That's the problem. That's why. So it's if we didn't even have, we shouldn't even be having this discussion. It's just silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my point. Like the holdup is that.
Yeah, and the thing that's frustrating is that what government officials don't necessarily realize is that just because somebody wasn't technically below the poverty line before the pandemic, that doesn't mean that their situation hasn't changed financially because of the pandemic. And so it's really frustrating to see just this iceberg dead ahead that we are going to hit in a couple of days. And I wanted to ask Cav, what is the situation in the UK? Because I feel like the United States has been like one of the worst in the developed world as to how they've handled the pandemic. But how is the UK government, just more broadly speaking, addressing the pandemic and the housing crisis and whatnot?
Yeah, I guess I had two separate issues. I always say about the US, it's like the most cut by capitalism country on earth because like you don't even have like the very basic necessities of universal healthcare, for example. And it's not even like part of the wider debate. Like Joe Biden isn't, like I said to you before the show, Joe Biden isn't fighting off Democrats who are forcing him to pass universal healthcare, really. Like there's obviously like a significant movement, but like he does not feel the pressure to make that part of his agenda. But in terms of coronavirus, it's quite similar. Like people like begging for $2,000 and Joe Biden not even like, how much did he send in the end? Was it 1,400? Was that his check? He said?
It was 1,400 because that was in addition to the 600 that was initially sent in December. But yeah, it was 1,400 overall.
Yeah. So in terms of the UK, the main help was this thing called the furlough scheme. Is that you could be furloughed from your job and get paid 80% of your salary. So I know my girlfriend was for like 5 months getting paid like quite a decent amount of your salary, and you're basically staying at home. So it's a bit of a luxury for some people, but obviously the threat is there. Your job might not actually exist after the furlough scheme. So that's something that has been renewed a lot of times. But in terms of like the housing crisis, it's kind of like the US. You're pretty screwed if you've lost your job and you're living paycheck to paycheck. We have something called universal credit, but it's pretty notorious for being quite a brutal system. It's basically the Tory government, I think it's in 2010, they basically made all the benefits one single thing. And basically you have to go through hoops to get it. And then you have to be applying for jobs and talking to people all the time. It's like looking for a job, basically. So while they have been better than the United States government, like it's crazy there's not like a massive revolt because it feels like, they're giving you crumbs and they think you should be grateful. Why are they fighting to give you one check? Why can the UK with this horrible right-wing government, like the most right-wing government in my lifetime, they're giving people loads of their income to help them stay afloat? Why can't the US do that as well? If like this hard right-wing government can do it in the UK, this so-called, the most progressive president since FDR cannot give more than $1,400. It's hardly better than Donald Trump in the end. And it's absolutely insane. I feel like the US, a lot of the problem is you don't realize what the rest of the world's politics are like because that just wouldn't fly. Like France is like probably like the least cut country and that'll just burn stuff down if they try and raise the retirement age over 62 or something. But like the US seriously needs like, I guess it's lucky for us because we live in Europe, we can just travel really easily. But in terms of like the US, I think they really need some perspective. But in terms of the rent thing specifically, the UK is really bad for this. Like the prices for rent are insane. I live in London and it's like one of the most expensive places to live in the world, like housing prices, rent prices. So I feel like there's a similar situation, but I don't think it's necessarily as severe as the US in that like it seems really, really bleak reading that. And I watched that documentary about like the Kushner's empire, like the landlord empire they have. That type of stuff is just like absolutely insane. I don't think that like slumlord type of politics is as prevalent in the UK. It of course exists. So I do feel like awful for just generally Americans because lots of you are, totally nice people. You're not crazy Trump supporters, but you still get the burden of living in a system where the Overton window is so shifted to the right. People are grateful for one check of $1,400. It's crazy.
Yeah. Lumi, I wanted to ask you a question that's a little bit more broad. Do you feel like, and I'm a little bit more doomer lately, so this is why I'm passing this question off to you because I feel like you could bring more optimism to the conversation. Do you feel like it actually is going to get worse before it gets better? Like I'm not promoting the idea of accelerationism that it's good, but do you think that there's going to be is there going to need to be a groundswell of people to actually force the government essentially to take action as it relates to rent? Because I feel like, right now, so long as people are in their homes, things are going to be okay. But once people start getting evicted, or the 7 to 8 million, as Amy said, like the government has to pay attention at that point if so many people have lost everything. What's your overall thoughts on this? And if you have any positivity to insert, that'd be appreciated. But I understand that there's not a lot to work with.
No, yeah, absolutely. So what I'd say is I hope not. I hope that they come to, they wake up a bit and realize that this would be an absolute tragedy. It would be horrifying. I think in the article it goes into, how awful these situations, these evictions, how long lasting they are on people. And I keep coming back to thinking about how people are returning to brunch now that Biden is there. And something I keep thinking is, okay, well, we need to use brunch as a time to build, because if we see our fellow citizens going out, getting evicted, and having these very lasting effects, that's weakening us. We need to be building on our revolution, or whatever you would like to call those changes. So I hope not, because that is a scary place to be, where we have to come forward with a lot of anger and hurt and trauma. Whereas I'd rather us be able to get together, go to brunch.
That would be so wonderful.
To move forward and say, these are the things we need to be doing. This is the revolution, whatever you want to call it, that we are building into the future. But,
Yeah, no, I'm with you right there. And part of the reason why I really appreciate people trying to, stay focused on this issue is because once we pass this cliff, it only gets worse. Like, the issue gets worse. So I know people who, they weren't evicted because of the pandemic, but they finally were able to get apartments, and then they couldn't afford it. Their situation changed financially, so they had to break their lease. And then once this happens, once you break your lease, if you're evicted, I mean, getting an apartment again, once you get back on your feet, is so difficult. And before we move on to the next topic, I wanted to have Amy plug her Medium article about this, because I think people really need to educate themselves, because that's step number one in fighting back. Because if you don't, like, housing in America is a very complex and convoluted issue, perhaps not as complex and convoluted as like healthcare, but it's still really, like, this is a really huge issue, and it varies depending on the area that you live in. Amy, can you plug that article?
Yeah, the name of it is "Allowing the Eviction Moratorium to Expire Before the Treasury Department Has Even Completed Its First Round of Funding Seems Highly Suspect." I just took I just very quickly like a little snippet from the article and made it the title. But it's on my Substack. It's my second article that I've written. I'm very new to this. My first article was about the acquisition of single-family homes from Wall Street-backed entities. And that is titled "Fuck Blackstone, All My Single Family Homes Hate Blackstone." And that is an incredibly important piece to understand what is happening right now, how private equity firms capitalized on the precarities tied to the 2008 housing collapse, the foreclosure crisis, and how they're repeating history right now. So what we are experiencing right now with the housing market and what looks to be the next foreclosure crisis, it's not just going to be the people who are living in single family homes in the suburbs. They are at risk. There is a 2.8% rate of delinquencies right now. But the reason why we are seeing a really high barrier of entry into the homeowners market is because the Federal Reserve has been pumping money directly into the economy by way of purchasing mortgage-backed securities. The purposes for this was to keep interest rates down. So what Blackstone did, and a whole bunch of other private equity firms, they went in, they bought up as many single-family homes as they could during the months of March, April, May of 2020. They locked in that really low interest rate. They took as many homes off the market. They were paying with cash, competing with owners or prospects who were looking to enter the market. They were kicked out of that prospect. And now we're seeing a decline in the total number of sales, while the value of the homes have steadily risen and the price of homes have steadily risen too. So that is what we are seeing right now with the overall housing market. And what is likely to occur is a small foreclosure crisis with the rental property investors who took advantage of this time period where banks weren't necessarily providing loans, private equity firms were, and that could be kind of a second market collapse that we see from the single family residential market. because people cannot pay their rent. So some tenants who can't pay their rent might have put a little burden on the landlords who can't pay their mortgages, understanding that this new iteration of the securities market that could lead to another huge bailout is what is likely to occur in this next potential market collapse. I'm sorry I did not answer the question that you asked.
No, that's great. Like you're basically a wealth of knowledge. So as much as I can like pick your brain while you're here is really great. And for those of you who haven't tuned into Amy's streams, not only will you get a lot of really important information about housing, but she'll play Mario Kart 64 while she talks about this stuff. So it's great. Like very entertaining. It's a great way to learn about it in a better way. Like when I talk about really doom and gloom things, like on my Twitch streams, I'll usually talk about climate change and how the world is ending, but then I'll have my dogs in the corner as like a little coping mechanism, and like to play a video game or like to any way that makes it easier to discuss these things, I'm all for. So Amy, thank you so much for your advocacy. And I just want to also plug the New Untouchables, the Pecora Files. We've been talking about this on my Twitch streams a lot. So this is a documentary series. It's in the 2nd season. I believe the 4th episode was just released last week from Real Progressives. And they talk about the housing crisis, and they've been sharing individual stories. And they talk about some of the things referenced by Amy. And one of the former Olympic gold medal athletes, she had basically a privatized SWAT team show up and forcibly remove her from her home. And the story is just, to even begin to describe it is insane. But aside from like getting these stories, it's also very educational, and they kind of fill you in these complex details. So I would really highly encourage everyone to look into this. But since we've been very doom and gloom with this subject, I will try to bring up a little bit more of a positive subject. Now, overall, it's not necessarily the most positive, but it's like we got a little bit of good news out of this.
When I was reading it, I was so thrilled. So
yeah, so I've been basically covering on my channel. I didn't get a chance to talk about this last week because I was off, but basically we've been following the situation in Arkansas where the Republican legislature, they passed a bill banning gender-affirming care for trans youth, which is medically necessary, and this law was horrible. So there was a lot of pressure exerted on the governor to veto that bill, and nobody thought that he would actually do that because he previously signed a bill into law banning trans athletes in high school from participating in school sports. So we thought there's no way that this is going to happen. But he did. He actually got pressure, vetoed the bill, and he went on Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was grilling him about this. It was a disgusting segment. But there's a bit of an update to this story. So after he vetoed that bill, well, the Republican legislature overrode his veto, and the law banning gender-affirming care for trans youth was set to go into effect on the 28th of this month. But we got an intervention here, at least temporarily, and this is really good news. So this is from NPR and OPB. A federal judge blocks Arkansas ban on trans youth treatments. Just in the nick of time. So let me read a little bit of the story before we discuss. So a federal judge on Wednesday temporarily blocked enforcement of Arkansas's ban on gender-confirming treatments for transgender youth while a lawsuit challenging the prohibition proceeds. The American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit in May asking U.S. District Judge Jay Moody in Little Rock to strike down the law that made Arkansas the first state to forbid doctors from providing gender-confirming hormone treatment, puberty blockers, or sex reassignment surgery to anyone under 18 years old, or from referencing them to other providers for such treatment. The ACLU sought the preliminary injunction while its lawsuit proceeded. To pull this care midstream from these patients or minors would cause irreparable harm, Moody said. And there's a really great Vice documentary about a bill being pushed in Mississippi that's relatively similar. There's some differences, though. So the law had been set to take effect July 28th. So at least for now, there's a pause on this. But I just want to kick it over to the panel. Thoughts on this?
I have a huge problem with all of this. This is a major civil liberties problem. I just want to say, like, the idea when I was reading this, and we see this in other ways, but the bottom line is they don't like trans people, and they don't like trans people, and they don't want to support this, and that's what it's about. Now they're going to try to sell it like it's some sort of like we're doing it in the best interest of the children, because if they're not 18, they could change their minds, and this isn't safe. That's a bunch of crap. So it's taking what is really a parent's right away from a parent, because as far as I know, anybody that's a minor had to get their parental consent. There's a lot of steps you have to jump through. It's not like you just go in as a minor and your doctor starts giving you hormones. So you already need parental consent. So the idea that they're trying to interfere with that, I find infuriating, like regardless of what the issue is. And they're only doing it, make no mistake, because they don't like trans people. That's really what this is.
We're just becoming a pawn. It's a political pawn. That's what it ends up feeling like. We're just a political pawn to continue. Like, it seems like abortion is a political pawn a lot of the times. And then we had gay rights. And now that that's not the hot topic, that's not the hot thing to use as a pawn, it's us. And it's horrifying. I can't imagine what it would have been like to be able to avoid the surgery, for example, that I had to get post 18, or just simply knowing about trans issues, but we're going backwards instead. And it's horrifying.
Yeah, there was a portion of time after marriage equality became the law of the land with Obergefell. There was like this huge shift with the LGBTQ plus community towards really trying to have more visibility for trans people and trans rights. And then I that optimism that I felt like 5-6 years ago has diminished because we absolutely are going backwards, as Lumi said. And I want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that just in 2021, there have been more anti-trans bills passed or introduced into legislatures across the country than the last 6 years. So this is, as Lumi said, it is a political ploy. And what's really nefarious about this whole situation is that this is being done under the guise of protecting trans youth. So everyone knows that, like,
hurting them.
Oh, it's hurting them. And as the doctor said, who was quoted in here, it's irreparable damage. The rate of suicidality among trans youth is so high in comparison with their cis peers. And to think that they would be denied this treatment, or in Mississippi, for example, in the event that law passed, it would have criminalized doctors who try to treat trans youth. It's just the fact that this is the political football that Republicans are using now is incredibly disgusting and disingenuous. And it's not just in the United States. In the United Kingdom, perhaps the situation might be even worse. Cav, I'm not sure if you have any personal stories to share, any more insight into this, but could you talk a little bit about the situation in the UK?
Yeah, I was just looking up something because I remember this. So a transgender woman actually fled to New Zealand as a refugee and got granted residency because they said being transgender in the UK is so dangerous. Because there's a gaming channel called Easy Allies, and one of their personalities just came out as trans, and they were talking about the healthcare they received to become trans. And as bad as it is, what you're saying right there, the experience they described was something I've never heard about in the UK. It was so sensitive and so nice. And I will say in the US, it's obviously really bad. And what it feels like is this culture war that is just ripping stuff straight from the 1980s about gay people. Like, you know, the trans bathroom stuff is like, oh, you don't want to use the same bathroom as X, Y, and Z because they might rape you, essentially. They said the exact same stuff about gay people in the 1980s and 1990s. It's literally taking that language and using it again. It feels like the exact same thing. Now, in the UK, what's even worse is that Tony Blair, you know, awful person, has become more influential in Labour again because of Keir Starmer, these more centrist Labour people taking power. And he told them, don't get involved with trans rights. It's just culture war. Like, no one cares about that. You're just going to alienate voters and stuff. Even though I was looking at some polling data before, which is quite surprising considering we demonize trans people in the UK so much, is that a lot of people are actually supportive of trans identity. There's other issues which are kind of like hit or miss, but largely the British public are. Now, it's just very frustrating that we can't even get a left-wing party to talk about these things. And it's a stereotype that's true. White liberal women are some of the worst transphobes in the UK. Obviously, J.K. Rowling, you know about. But every Guardian columnist or stuff like that, they're all writing these awful articles. So, like, I feel really bad for people in the UK because at least in the US, I know it's awful because you have these absolute zealots in the Republican Party, the Christian right, who are like uncompromising. And I just made a video before I came on about the new civil war in the Republican Party because they're having a fight over, do they accept transgender Republicans? And the religious right say, no, it's like degeneracy. Whereas the more like, I guess, people who aren't as religious are saying, if they're conservative, who cares? And now in the UK, we don't have that debate anywhere. It's literally like, don't talk about it. It will just alienate the voters. And because of this push, because Manchester and traditionally working class areas went to the Tories for the first time, it's like this perspective or perception that these guys who Labour lost are inherently like racist or bigoted. So the way you win them back is don't talk about that stuff, because they think the loony left under Corbyn, who did talk about all this stuff, rights of minorities, rights of refugees, trans people, like really great stuff, that was too alienating. Rather than looking at the bigger problem, it was just this complete overwhelming demonization by the press. So I would say at least in America you have like visibility for trans rights and trans issues. And just Joe Biden saying this, I know it doesn't mean much coming from someone like him, but Joe Biden talking about transgender rights is like absolutely huge. Like, and that's where I think in America you can build on that, because imagine how many old people who love Joe Biden are being exposed to this stuff for the first time, where in the UK we can't even get a 50-year-old Labour leader to even acknowledge this stuff. So like I feel like in the US it's a massive uphill battle, and it's part of the culture war, but like hopefully, because we've seen the success with the gay rights movement, eventually, I'm not saying it's like total equality, but you got there in the end where it's more accepted. So I'm hoping with America especially, just this acknowledgement from at least one major political party of these people and the issues facing them is really going to help the fight for trans rights. Where in the UK, I don't really know where we go, because our left-wing party is being totally destroyed from the inside. It literally feels like some sort of MI6 plot to eradicate the Labour Party. That's how disastrous it's going here. So yeah, it is doom and gloom everywhere, but I feel like I'm a bit more hopeful about America in general, despite like the vicious backlash. Was it like 30 different states passing or trying to pass laws against trans people? Like, it's pretty crazy. I read in that article.
It's an absurd amount.
Yeah. At least dozens. Not all of them have passed. And the reason why there was so much fear around these laws is because, well, like with the United States, there's always this domino effect where one state does something, other states tend to follow suit, because, then all of the controversy kind of diminishes a little bit. So, with Arkansas being the first, when we all thought Mississippi was going to be the first, it's like, okay, this is now law. They did it, and now, that state is going to bear the brunt of the backlash, and now other states will follow suit with little to no controversy. And there's a lot going on in the media, so it doesn't get covered. And it's frustrating. Like, I'm glad that you brought that up, Cav, about the Labour Party not wanting to touch it, because that actually is an area of optimism for me, that the Democratic Party, for the most part, I think they need to fight harder for trans rights and LGBTQ plus, generally speaking. They should be fighting way harder to push the Equality Act. I mean, the fact that it's still just kind of thrown under the bus, and still, this controversial thing is really frustrating. But, it is so super nefarious that the Republican Party chose to capitalize on this issue. And what they're doing is they're truly preying on people's ignorance, because there's this assumption that, well, trans, non-binary people, they just all of a sudden came out of nowhere when they've always existed, but now they have heightened visibility. So, now that people are becoming aware and less ignorant, and they know somebody who's trans or non-binary, they're seizing this opportunity. And for me, part of my optimism and perhaps a little bit of naivete was thinking, well, you know what, since, we're all part of the LGBTQ plus community, these issues, like, you kind of use the same logic, right? But it's not that simple. So for me, for example, conversations that I've had with family members about being gay, I'm now having to rehab those conversations about transgender issues and non-binary. And it's really frustrating to me. But at the same time, it's part of the process that is, you can't avoid it. But when you have also, policymakers trying to use this group as a weapon, which is the most marginalized in society, at least when it pertains to trans and non-binary youth, it's just morally reprehensible. I wanted to give Amy a chance to jump in here.
Yeah, there's in my state, in my home state of West Virginia, there was a law that passed. It's not just medical treatment, but it's also denying trans kids the right to compete in sports and taking away their livelihood, on top of denying them rights to medical treatments, I think is the reason why this is going to be irreparable and irreversible. There's no other way that you could really attack a trans kid by making their life in school even more difficult. If they can't even try to forge friendships or find some sense of camaraderie in a sports team that might, not be bigoted or would accept them, and making it as difficult for trans children is absolutely, it's morally bankrupt. It is criminal, especially because, of course, I'm going to bring this back to housing. The amount of experience hatred that trans kids witness or experience in their home leads to a higher rate of homelessness. So
yeah,
when kids are kind of kicked out of their own home, and what services are available to them through outreach programs with homeless programs, that does help them to maintain control of their identity and offers them affirming treatments that the state is then denying to them. Then what options or available recourse are you leaving them? And how is this going to be to the detriment of their entire mental health down the line, especially whenever you are in such a tender age where your brain is still very much developing? There are plenty of empirical analyses that have been conducted and research that has been conducted that shows that there is a long-term effect that you experience as a child if you are trans and you are subjected to homelessness, among other things. So just kind of taking that one step further into the equation and getting the risks that these children experience, and that the state is only making it worse for them by imposing this violence onto them, is absolutely, like you said, morally reprehensible.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I just want to say Biden being like, I don't know how, there's like 3 genders or more, was the most wholesome way to start things. Like, because so many people don't even know about non-binariness, and then non-binariness, and then we're over here like, now let's attack you all. And I'm just like, can we just chill? Please. We just got this, like, there is more, so many people just figuring out about non-binary people, and now it's like, okay, let's go after the trans kids. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really frustrates me is like, it's going after LGBTQ plus adults is bad enough, right? But when you go after children, and all of these bills specifically target children, there's something so deeply just damaging about that. And to do it under the guise, as I said, of, oh, well, we just really care about these children, we're helping them. It's so sickening. And yeah, so one thing that I think would really turn things around in the United States, at least, and perhaps in the UK as well, is heightened visibility. And I've said this before, and people don't think it's as absurd as it sounds, but I think that like shows like Glee actually normalized being gay a lot more than people think. And we need that type of a show, or that type of visibility for trans people, for non-binary people, because not everyone is going to know somebody who is trans or non-binary. And thankfully, I have a cousin who's non-binary, and it, like, just talking to them, it makes sense. And I want everyone to talk to this person, because then they would understand it, I feel like. But not everyone can get that experience. So it's so difficult to educate a lot of folks when they've never met someone like this. And this is really how ignorance, it festers, right? If you've never seen a gay person, if you've never talked to a trans person, you're not going to really know about it, which is why I think that homophobia is kind of diminishing in the United States, because people started to come out. And now it's like, oh, well, gay people aren't this like weird thing. I have a brother who's gay, or a sister who, is a lesbian. And we just
know them. They say, do you know him?
People.
Do you know so-and-so? You must know each other.
Oh yeah, the gay people that know each other. Are you,
yeah.
No, that point is so huge though, because I know, and I keep asking trans people, when's the first time you learned about transness? Because so many of them, it's in like transness being a joke, or for me, it was my friend getting mad at me for supporting the LGBTQ community in a day of silence because I was supporting the T, and her sister just came out as trans. So it was my friend saying, this is ruining my family. And for that to be the experience, or to hear, like, for these to be our first experiences are horrifying and confusing. And it's just awful. So I think you're totally right in that those representations, those positive representations are so much. It does so much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not everything, but it's
a good start. It's like an entry into, it's like 101 for LGBTQ plus, I feel like. And Peter, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to what I think is the elephant in the room when it comes to the GOP, and that is they are so engulfed by the evangelical right. They have so much control in terms of decision making within the party because of how much money they have. Pretty much all of the religious grifters, if you will, they're all evangelicals. And I think that also shows a lot with what just happened with Turning Point USA with Charlie Kirk and this whole blow up about this, woman who works in adult entertainment. And she was.
I literally made my video about that just before we came on.
Oh, okay.
Just talked about it. Yeah.
And she wasn't even a speaker at this event, but because she was there, the evangelical right found out about it, and they basically, let's just be honest, they cucked Charlie Kirk to get her out. Wow. And was like, hey, and she, to her credit, wasn't taking it lying down. She's like, hey, I'm allowed to attend this event, and these religious nut jobs who believe in, things that don't make any sense. Like, that's one of the reasons why I think we can find a lot of common ground with libertarians, because most libertarians they're not against this. They're just against, they're all about live and let live. Just as long as it doesn't affect me personally, I don't care. But there's this problem with the evangelical right that really believes it's their divine right to tell you how to live. It's so insane. And again, more often than not, we know what the truth is. A lot of people that are like that are suppressing their own personal feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I use it too much as a trope, but like whenever I see some homophobic segment from like Steven Crowder, I'll have to remind everyone, I think he's probably suppressing some feelings that he's burying deep down inside, because I mean,
you don't want to claim him. You want to claim him?
No, he will never be part of our community.
That's what I'm saying. Don't push that out there. Don't paint that community.
From my experience, I was very homophobic as a teen growing up, because my only experience was just like, gay bad. And there were no like role models or representation. And so like I was like the first gay role model in my own family. So that was like their entry into it, So when I see, and this is projection on my part, when I see people who are very homophobic or like overtly transphobic and they just focus on this community nonstop, I think you're a little bit sus. And you should do some soul searching.
This is bothering you a bit more than makes sense.
Yeah.
I do think
see what you're saying. Interesting.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what you guys were saying about visibility, and you were saying, Mike, you were homophobic. Like, I was thinking, when was I made aware of just transgender people existing? And I think it was really late on in life, and that's how crazy it is. Like, I remember gay kids in school who came out later in life would face so much abuse in school, and that was like something in my own life, it wasn't even that visible. Like, if you asked me if I knew a gay person when I was like 17, I'd probably say no, even though I did know a few, it would turn out. But with trans issues especially, I'd never heard about that in school, never taught about it. I did go to a Catholic school, but it was a fairly progressive one. But then my sister, who's 6 years younger, she's like this generation that had Instagram and they're 8 years old and stuff. Her generation seemed to know about all these things so much better than my generation, because I'm 25. So Facebook, we got Facebook when we were like 12 years old. The other stuff came a bit later, but it wasn't as like this global community. Influencers on YouTube as well. There's some like very prominent trans ones. So I feel like it's also like a generational shift as well, because I feel like I'm the last generation like bordering on where we didn't grow up online. I remember having like crappy phones and no internet and stuff. Whereas now, just like 6 years after, I see all my sister's friends like sharing like very pro-trans things. It's very, very good to see. But in the UK, we don't have these prominent trans people. Like, we have Eddie Izzard, I think, is the biggest one, who's an actor. But you guys have like so many in the US. And I like what you were saying about the evangelical right, because that Brandy Love thing, weirdly, they kept lumping Caitlyn Jenner into that, because they see it as part of the same problem. They see it as
deviant.
Some sort of
they're deviant.
Degeneracy.
Yeah.
Just like how they used to view being gay. You're not actually like gay. You're just disgusting, because that gets you off, basically, gay sex and stuff like that. But it's very interesting. They frame it as the same thing, and they're saying, let's cancel Brandy Love, let's cancel Tommy Lauren for supporting Caitlyn Jenner. And I think, like you were saying about the libertarians, I read the polling, and support for transgender rights has gone up with independence massively in the last 5 years. So I do think you're onto something a bit about it doesn't just have to be like a left-wing thing. There are people maybe who lean a bit more right that you can get over onto our side, be like, you can recognize these people and don't buy into the hysteria from the right side and stuff.
I think it also speaks to who controls the levers of power. Like the biggest problem with the Democratic Party is that the levers of power are controlled by Wall Street. And so when you look at who is controlling the levers of power in the GOP, yes, Wall Street has their hand in it, but the evangelical right have a lot to say with how the platform is constructed. There is a reason why Trump picked Mike Pence as his VP, because there is a significant part of this country. I even said to Jen and people that I knew when Trump picked Pence, from a political standpoint, if you're looking at winning, that was one of the smartest moves he made because it locked up Iowa and Ohio at that moment.
Yeah.
I really don't think a lot of people really understand that there really is this fight within the country amongst, I think it's really amongst millennials and Gen Zers in particular, and even Gen Xers, we could be fair about that there is this war, if you will, to get away from the religious control that has dominated our society for a very long time. Not that you should be anti-religion, because I think practice of religion is fine, but there is a reason why it's supposed to be the separation of church and state. Right. And for some reason, the evangelical right hasn't gotten that memo, and they're still not getting it, and we got to change that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, speaking of the evangelical right, which I think is a section of the country that is overly stupid, not to be too crass, we're going on to our next segment, which is this week's weekly dose of stupidity, and we have 2 entries, folks.
In a world of politics dominated by the strange, the deranged, and outright insane, we'll now take a moment to shine a light on the craziest of what politics has to offer. This is your weekly dose of stupidity.
Great. No, I know.
And I've got a treat for you all today, folks. So this is Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, and he has some thoughts about people who wear masks. So I'll let him go ahead and take it away. And by the way, my beard is better than his, just to put that out there.
Yes, it is.
True.
And we're going to start to see, we've already seen, but we'll begin to see even more, these mandates being put into effect on local and state levels. The question is really just whether you will choose to abide by it. And if you do, I go back to the Sam Adams quote: "If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are a countryman." That's where I am now with the mask.
Wait.
May your mask set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are a countryman. I don't even want to share a country with you. You're a disgrace. If you're still taking these people seriously after all of this, you're going to do what they tell you to do. Contradicting themselves constantly.
Okay, so that escalated very quickly. We have some quotes, and then it goes, I don't want to share a country with you. But before I go over to the panel, I have one more addition to the story. This is beautiful to me. Lauren Boebert throws mask in the face of a floor staffer as she fumes over, quote, totalitarian house rules. Imagine thinking that a piece of cloth over your face is totalitarian. Imagine if somebody walked into a store and they started freaking out because they thought that the mandate to wear clothing was authoritarian. It's shocking. So we'll read a little bit of this. I feel like this is totally believable for Lauren Boebert, but Colorado GOP Representative Lauren Boebert, who's also a QAnon conspiracy theorist, folks, doesn't like masks, as evidenced by her COVID denialist rhetoric and her history of defying mask mandates in the House chamber. Now, her dislike for masks is apparently causing her to lash out at people physically, according to Politico's Sarah Ferris and ABC News' Ben Siegel. Quote, "Wow, GOP rep Lauren Boebert just threw a mask in the face of a floor staffer when she came to the floor not wearing one, per someone watching the exchange fairs tweeted this Wednesday. Representative Lauren Boebert just threw a mask at the Democratic floor staffer who tried to give her one, per source on the House floor who saw it happen. Folks, what is going on in the world? I have to ask Cav first. Is it as big of an issue in the UK as it is here in the United States? Because people really don't like masks.
Yeah, I find the American politicization of masks as this total partisan issue, like, insane. Basically, just for some context, we've recently got rid of the mask law, so you can't be fined by the police now. But TfL, which runs the Tube, and other train companies, you have to wear a mask. Most supermarkets say you have to wear a mask. I'm a bit annoyed at them taking away the law because lots of people don't wear masks. But there's a very conspiratorial fringe in the UK who are very anti-mask, anti-lockdown, but they were protesting the lockdown after the lockdown ended, like last week. So this shows you how crazy they are. But with Americans, I'm like, it blows my mind. It's literally like a key political issue on the right. Like, I can't understand the selfishness, the individualism. I was watching like a documentary about Japan in the 30s, and loads of them are wearing masks. And this is like nearly 100 years ago. And obviously the key reason is, and I don't think the American, like just generally, the Americans have really emphasized what a mask does. It doesn't stop you from getting COVID, which seems to be like the common misconception. It protects other people around you. And I'm also very frustrated at Dr. Fauci and some other people for just saying you don't have to wear it anymore. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear it. But there wasn't enough information about whether the vaccine stopped transmission. And what frustrates me so much is these mask mandates aren't being enforced. So it's just like a suggestion. So the people who are, looking out for their fellow citizens a bit more, they'll wear them, right? The people who aren't going to wear them, they're never going to wear them. So why take away the mandate, the federal mandate, or take away anything in the UK as well? It's just very, very frustrating because also what's happened as well, like loads of flu cases have gone down, like flu deaths and everything. And just as a society, I hope this is like a more of a learning moment that, yes, if you're ill, you should probably wear a mask if you get in public transport. And it's really not an inconvenience. I wear it in a crowded street. If it's crowded, I wear it in a supermarket. I wear it in public transport. It's really not a big deal. Yet in the summer, it can get quite hot and uncomfortable. I'm not going to be like, was that video of them all applauding when the mask mandate got rid of it out of some local city council? They were going absolutely crazy. And I'm like, what country am I looking at here? I guess it's like the hyper focus on the individual in America makes people think like, oh, you're infringing on my rights. And the comparisons with like the Holocaust and stuff, like absolutely revolting shit right now. I think Americans, like, was it a poll that like 66% of Americans don't know what the Holocaust really was or something? I think they need a better education. If you're comparing wearing a mask to look out for people who might be vulnerable to a virus to like the extermination of a whole like race of people, I think it just shows like, was it Marjorie Green Taylor was saying this stuff and you're wearing like the Star of David and stuff. It's totally crazy. So yes, in the UK there's a fringe. It's not like the Conservatives are going to die on this issue or anything. It's just in America it's insane. Like it is actually a crazy thing to watch.
I think there's just unfortunately a lot of conservatives in particular that have this this vision of America that they think exists, but it doesn't actually exist, and they want to play that role. They're in love with the flag. They're in love with nostalgic history.
But this is the hill they want to die on? It is masks?
In many ways. I just think that there's this thing about hearing the words liberty and freedom that get their rocks off in such a way. It's like they want to play this this hero-like role. And notice that most of the people that are like that, these are not people that, served in combat. They kind of wish they did. They kind of wish that they had the courage to actually stand on the front line and fight, but they don't. They'll hold the gun, they'll hold the Bible, they'll do all those things. And unfortunately, there was, and this is something that Trump did, and was the most dangerous part of his presidency, is it isn't necessarily that Trump was the dangerous person, but he, being the person that he is, he seized on the base of people that he knew he could excite into such a frenzy and just tell them that, oh, they're totally coming after you. You're totally going to be killed. And you got to do what we say because we totally know what we're talking,
So, no, but what I wanted to say is what you were talking about is something that I talk about a lot. We, in this country, we don't care about the collective. We don't think about the collective. If you even mention the collective, you're generally considered
You're
a communist.
Communist.
And which, and that's a big problem. But, it shouldn't be surprising how the response is to COVID, because really, if we cared about the collective, we'd have healthcare. We'd have public tuition-free public college. We'd have like you're talking about, like all of these things that would make us be handling COVID better are the same reasons why we're not handling COVID better. Like it's all connected, and we don't care about the collective.
Yeah, the three things that we absolutely need is universal health care, living wage. You can obviously incorporate universal education. Our education system in this country is a joke.
But that's on purpose.
But that is on purpose. And then, of course, if you had a Green New Deal, I think the reason the Green New Deal is a lot of people on the left are not good at marketing. And so if you're going to sell the Green New Deal, you sell it as a green energy jobs program, because that's what it is. And the whole infrastructure needs to change, and that could take at least a decade, if not more.
But we don't care enough, really.
Nah, I wouldn't even necessarily say that you don't care. It's that these are the types of components that can bring a lot of people together. There's too much of this this wedge separation, and that's why issues like LGBTQ come to the forefront, because they are wedge issues. They want people to be divided. They don't
and abortion.
Want us to,
we have abortion.
They don't want us to find common ground. That's the goal. The second we start finding common ground, as I suggested, between progressives and libertarians, that's when the guns come out. That's when they go. That's when they know that they have to stop it, because they know that there are so many more, as you like to say, there are so many more of us than there are of them who are pulling the levers of power. And Amy, as you know, there doesn't need to be homelessness in Los Angeles.
Doesn't need to be homelessness anywhere. They
Yeah.
choose to have homelessness everywhere.
Choose to have it because the people who live in Beverly Hills and Bel Air and Sherman Oaks, they like looking down upon people who live in Watts and Compton and Inglewood and places like that. They like this idea that they think that they're better people in society.
Well,
that they're higher
it's
up.
profitable for this.
You raise a really good point, because when you talk about how liberals like to make it appear as though they are on the right side of history, they agree to the prospect of change, they favor incremental changes made at the the legislative level, but when it came to, say, a decision that was made in Austin, Texas, as to whether or not the city should go back to criminalizing the homeless, there was a referendum passed a few years ago that decriminalized homelessness. It allowed for the unhoused to set up encampments in the public realm. And recently, there was another referendum that supported going back to criminalizing homelessness. And we watched a documentary, I believe it was Vox, on my stream, and it was interviewing liberals who were going to vote in favor of this referendum because they took issue with the mere sight of the unhoused, the destitution. It bothered their sensibilities, and they voted in favor with the conservative agenda in this case. And so I think with homelessness and dealing with the response to homelessness, you have to push past the incremental liberalism that is offered in any type of response to homelessness as the greater issue. Finding the root cause to homelessness isn't that difficult. It's capitalism, full stop. How do you stop unfettered capitalism in the real estate economy determining where we live and how much we pay without the government feeling any sense of obligation to intervene in any real capacity? We don't have government funded housing in this country. We don't have public housing. We barely have affordable housing programs that offer any rental relief to those who are eligible, but don't receive the assistance because underfunded programs and such. So yeah, I think that we're seeing a real divide here too, where liberals have to side with a progressive stance or a leftist stance and the decriminalization of homelessness, funding more public housing stock, and pushing the envelope with combating what we are seeing right now, which is an uptick in those who are experiencing homelessness. And instead, liberals are siding with the Republican agenda. They are voting in favor of the consensus that you see on the Republican side, and that is round them all up and put them in concentration camps. If Republicans had their way, that's what they would do. Let's be honest. So, yeah, no, I feel very strongly about criticizing the liberal response to homelessness and the way that they are tending to vote at the local level on these ballot initiatives. It's a real problem. Sorry for
no, it's good.
No,
yeah,
but
sorry, folks.
Sorry, I was at one point, and it's kind of just with the two-party system in the US, when you both have two parties that are both heavily capitalist. Like homelessness is not like a downside of capitalism. It's kind of like the feature. If you don't have something to bring to the free market to a lot of these people, you don't deserve to live. And homelessness is a you problem. You should work harder. You should do better in life. And if you end up homeless and die, then that's just all your fault, basically. And that's just a problem. I think as some Democrats are better, but Joe Biden defending capitalism the other day. Do you think he thinks homelessness is just like a problem that is just societal and based on many different factors, and like he can solve it? He probably thinks there is an element of like you failed at life,
I think it's a floor. I think it's an exemplar of like the lowest of the low where you would be if you don't pull yourself up by the bootstraps and work harder. I think our dilapidated public housing is the reason it is the way that it is, as a reason to make you compete and participate in an oppressive capitalist society, because otherwise this is where you will end up. It's the fear or the threat of relegation to these unforeseen places where you do not want to live, as a way to incentivize you to work as hard as possible, do whatever you have to do to make ends meet. If that means working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, whatever it takes to not get to a point where you are living on the streets. I think that's one of the reasons why it's not fully addressed in its totality.
Do you see the comment?
While simultaneously scaring people away from you and saying like there's something wrong with you, saying, oh, like I've been apartment searching and I've been here, I've been looking around, I've been looking at the news, and I've been seeing people complain about homeless people. I talked to a renter and he was complaining about them, and then I heard like the woman that I was considering renting from, her talking about the crackheads on the street, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you have no empathy for these people. And yet I pull a conservative on to talk about rural issues, and he demands that we must, he's okay with building housing because he thinks that we do need housing for these people. But he's like, it should be barracks. It should not be good housing because they need a reason to push through and be productive. And I'm like, mother fluffer.
And think about also, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just was so frustrated because I'm like, I don't understand why you want people to suffer. Do you think I am not like, I sit there, and maybe this is projection, but I want to take care of my community. I find fulfillment in my garden and knowing that maybe I will have enough stuff to give to other people, because that's amazing. I grew something and you can eat it. Like, that's fucking awesome. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on here.
Oh, absolutely. It's actually encouraged.
Okay, thank goodness. But I'm so frustrated with that. And he projects and says, no, people are inherently lazy. I would just want to smoke weed and do YouTube. And I'm like, listen, I'll smoke weed too, but I think it is that we want to get out there and we want to take care of our communities. And I think you have fooled yourself into believing that everyone needs to be afraid. Everyone needs to feel shame and be cut off from their communities. It's awful.
I have no empathy. Look, here are the facts. Okay, I'm gonna have to work a lot harder, and that's the way I worked when I was young. Do you know how hard I had to sell out on Capitol Hill? I offered myself to so many different hobbyists.
Did you listen to the record player?
Look, we played the record.
Hear the words.
But again, I have no empathy. Here are the facts, Jack. Okay? You're going to have to work harder than the next person. Capitalism is great. It's really great. Trust me, that's Mike. He knows.
Come on.
How long have I been president for? Am I president?
You're president, yeah.
This is way past my bedtime. And I only wanted to come on here because You guys are saying
Sleepy, sleepy Joe.
Really?
Sleepy, sleepy. Stay away from my hair.
Now that I was able to breathe in that beautiful hair,
I was going to say, like, Jen, you're a little bit too close to the president there.
I still prefer when he's burning.
Oh, stop complaining, man.
All right.
You gotta go out there and work hard. And if you work hard, you might sleep in a cardboard box instead of on the street.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much for that, Peter.
But you get the idea.
Yeah, so my laptop just like randomly crashed, so I had to switch sets, and now it feels weird being in my like new set wearing a Naruto shirt. But let me just say, chat, I need to have a conversation with you. I adjust the lights when I use this camera, so if you say anything about my shiny forehead, I swear to God, I will ban all of you. So
I'm just glad that we get to see your. I just like the exposed brick background. That's the best one.
Yeah, he loves your.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is synthetic brick, but it is it is very like it does the job. It does the job. Okay, folks, so here's what we're going to do next. So we have a couple more stories, but I'm going to try to reboot my laptop and go into the Dystopian Times like proper set because like it feels weird doing it from this set, but I mean, it works. But we're going to go to our featured content creator of the week. And this week I have somebody who is just so incredibly young and so knowledgeable at a young age, who just started doing YouTube not too long ago, got involved because of the Black Lives Matter protests, and is now already producing really insightful, incredible content. So folks, this is our featured content creator of the week.
Dystopian times.
Before I start, I just want to thank Mike for giving me a platform to, well, quite obviously promote my content. I think that for leftist content creators to spread our message more effectively, it is important that we help each other out and stand in solidarity with each other. With that being said, hi, I'm Anthony, also known as Next Step Productions on YouTube. I make, as I like to call it, leftist propaganda. I cover topics ranging from the lovely billionaire space race, the conservative backlash to the critical race theory, and how neoliberal corporations are exploiting Pride Month for their own profit and benefit. I make all these videos with a healthy dose of sarcasm and some dark humor mixed in between. I upload videos every Monday and Thursday for now, although that might change since I'm going to school in the fall. Now, there is a couple of reasons why I got into politics, well, despite my age. The first reason was because of the racial justice protests in response to George Floyd's murder by the police. After seeing racial justice protesters rightfully protesting the murder of George Floyd being brutally suppressed by the police, it has solidified my belief that in America, we must act to solidify racial justice with both legislation and advocacy. The second reason was because of the severe economic inequality that the pandemic has only made more apparent, and the subsequent failure of the Democratic Party to bring meaningful change. You see, our family, along with millions of other families, lost both their income and healthcare during a fucking pandemic. For our family, we were fortunate to have emergency funds that we could draw upon and live through this pandemic. But a lot of people don't have such emergency savings. They are already trying to make ends meet, and this pandemic has been the last straw for many families. And that is exactly the point here. Millions of people are suffering in the richest country in the world, and yet our leaders fail to acknowledge that 4 cancerous decades of neoliberal bullshit has led to this disastrous economic system. This, overall, has cemented my belief that we must move towards a more just social and economic system that works for everyone, not just Bezos and his fellow pigs, I mean friends. And yes, I am aware of my age. Conservatives sure love to point that out as reason why my arguments are invalid and that this is all just teenage angst. But I just want to make clear that I make my videos based on thorough research and intensive script writing, and I also spend hours editing and fact-checking the information that I'm providing. In short, it is not teenage angst, but rather unvalid political analysis based on facts and information that is available to me. I don't pretend that I'm a neutral corporate news anchor. I don't hide my biases, but I also don't make up information. I strive to bring quality leftist content to my viewers, and if that isn't enough, I don't know what is. So, if some factual leftist propaganda with a healthy dose of dark humor and sarcasm sounds interesting to you, do check me out at youtube.com/nextstepproductions. And finally, I appreciate that you watched through all my rambling, and thank you for lending me your support.
So folks, there will be a link in the description box. I mean, okay, when I was his age, I was nowhere near that knowledgeable about politics. And so it's really encouraging to see young people get involved and care so much about these issues. So please, folks, support Next Step Productions. There's going to be a link in the description box. So the goal is to get Next Step to 1,000 YouTube subscribers. That's the short-term goal. But I mean, folks, it's not going to take long before he's passing me. And that will be something to celebrate, because I love when young people get involved. I just want to do a little bit of a side note, though. So if you want to be the next featured content creator, please email mike@humanistreport.com with the subject line DT in all caps _submissions. Now, you do have to get your submissions in by no later than September 1st, because the season finale of Dystopian Times is September 8th. So I'm not going to be able to cover everyone, but I want to at least cover a lot of people. So, and I want to give you the chance. So please make sure that you do not forget to submit your channel if you want to be featured. So yeah, everyone, before you even leave this stream, go and subscribe. Let's get him to 1,000 subs. I think that will be incredible. Okay.
I was actually going to tell you that I'm really impressed with you, actually. I mean,
with me?
The kid's great. Yeah, because we're talking about this, like, you are doing, I mean, we think that the most important thing is to pass the torch and mentor younger people. And bringing up voices and not trying to beat other people down. And it's really nice that you're doing that. I think it's really great that you're letting them put their own thing out. Like, I just think it's really cool.
Yeah, we definitely try to uplift as many voices as we can on our channel, and obviously you're very well aware of all the drama that's been going on with a lot of the channels lately. And it's like, I understand it may be good for clicks, but the truth is we really need to be able to build up this type of a movement that is sustainable, because if we're ever going to get to universal health care, we're ever going to get to a Green New Deal and a living wage, the circular firing squad, the constant infighting, no, it's not getting us there. In fact, it's going to knock us back down.
But we need to pass the torch. We need to pass the torch. It's the same thing for people sitting in Congress. It's the same thing for content creators. We have to raise up the younger people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to dogpile you too hard, but I didn't get to check out your show. I've been searching for apartments. This particular thing that you do, and I've been so impressed. I'm just so I'm so happy to be here. I feel like it's been a really productive conversation. I've gotten to learn about a lot of issues, and so thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you all so much for the love. I really appreciate that. My whole thing is, like, nowadays it's so much harder to grow on YouTube than it was when I started, and so it can't be the case that there's like 5 cis white dudes who are doing political news on YouTube. Like, we have to open it up. We need more international voices. We need more females, trans YouTubers, people of color. So that's why I try to promote people who are just doing a good job, because it's really frustrating. Like, oh, I'm echoing. I'm not sure.
You are.
Hello?
It sounds all right to me. It sounds fine.
Hello!
Okay, I think Mr. Anderson says that I was echoing. Shout out to my mod, Mr. Anderson, by the way. Hopefully that's corrected. I'm not sure if... Hello? Okay. But anyways, I try to basically like bring people in because it's really difficult. And I used to put so much work into my segments when I first started, and I had like 100 subs or whatever, and nobody would see it. And it was so demoralizing, and I don't want people to stop. I want them to keep going. So if they get a little bit of a boost, then that's important. It's not like they're going to, blow up because of a little shout out that they get on Dystopian Times, but it's nice to get some recognition, and then organically they will continue to build if they do a good job and they're consistent. So I'd like to, just take time to
and my mom thinks you're
spotlight.
adorable. I had to throw that out to you. My mom thinks you're adorable. So, Mike.
Who?
You.
Oh, she does? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
My mom does.
Well,
I'm just
thank
telling
you. Thank you, Jen's mom. I really appreciate that. By the way, I'm not sure if you saw
I had turned her on a while ago, and I told her I was coming on there tonight, and she's like, "Oh, he's adorable."
Oh, that's really sweet. Well, Jen, I feel like our moms should be friends, so we'll have our moms talk to each other. My mom needs friends.
Does she want like a well over middle-aged hippie cool boomer?
That's my mom. That's my mom too. So yeah, that's
cool, there you go.
They're soulmates. Yeah.
There are a few.
That'll be perfect. Okay, so I've got a couple more segments to go over. We're not going to get to everything, obviously, but I do want to at least get to. Oops, sorry, I'm on my other computer, and I just want to make sure that I grab the right window. Here we go. So, I'm not sure if you all have been following the infrastructure talks, but we got a little bit of a wrench thrown into everyone's plans. So just to give everyone background, if you haven't been following this, and I don't blame anyone who hasn't been following the situation because it changes so quickly, but basically the plan to get progressives to go along, progressives in Congress to go along with the infrastructure deal was to give them a reconciliation package, because basically congressional progressives were left out of the talks for the infrastructure because all the conservatives got what they want. So everyone in Congress, Joe Biden, they all agreed, if we pass this infrastructure bill that the conservatives in Congress and both parties want, then we'll pass a reconciliation bill at the same time. Well, now all of a sudden they reached an agreement on the infrastructure bill, and Kyrsten Sinema is saying, actually, I don't support the reconciliation bill. So immediately betraying the entire goal of this compromise, trying to ice out progressives. And I'll get your thoughts on this, but I just want to read a little bit from this story. I mean, we knew this was coming. Joe Manchin was already signaling that he wants to water down the reconciliation proposal, which would contain possibly a minimum wage increase, but unlikely. But more specifically, what was being fought for with progressives in Congress, primarily Bernie Sanders, is lowering the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 60 and expanding coverage so it includes dental, hearing, and vision, which would be incredible. I mean, it's not Medicare for all, but it is moving us in that direction by expanding Medicare, and that's exactly what we want to do. But now the conservatives in Congress, Kyrsten Sinema, is shitting on it. So this is from Raw Story, and it reads, Arizona Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema was riding high on Wednesday as a group of Republicans announced their support for a bipartisan infrastructure deal by the afternoon. Though by the afternoon, it still wasn't clear if it had enough votes to pass. Just as momentum was building for that legislation, though, Sinema deflated hopes for Democrats' follow-up act, a $3.5 billion budget reconciliation bill. And the reason why this is important is because this just needs 50 plus 1 votes to pass. It doesn't need the 60-vote majority required for other pieces of legislation. So that's why they're trying to get this all done at the same time. So the budget bill only requires 50 votes to pass. Oh, I shouldn't have explained all that. Avoiding the 60-vote threshold that the Senate typically requires to enact law. That means Democrats don't need any Republican votes to pass a budget bill. But with only 50 Democratic lawmakers in the Senate, the party needs every member on board if it's going to shove its spending priorities through the budget process, as long been the plan. In a Wednesday statement to the Arizona Republic, though, Sinema announced she doesn't want to spend $3.5 trillion on the bill. I have also made clear that while I will support beginning this process, I do not support a bill that costs $3.5 trillion, and in the coming months, I will work in good faith to develop this legislation with my colleagues and the administration to strengthen Arizona's economy and help Arizona's everyday families get ahead. Yeah, right. So basically what's happening is she got everything that she wanted. Her and her, right-wing ghouls, they got everything that they wanted in the infrastructure proposal. And now they're trying to control the reconciliation bill, which is where progressives are supposed to get some concessions. Now, I genuinely hope that progressive members of Congress fight. I'm comfortable with Bernie Sanders as the budget reconciliation chair. But at the same time, we knew this was happening, but it's still really frustrating. Thoughts from the panel here?
And people thought that AOC was not being, was changing too much going to Capitol Hill. Look at what Senator Sinema's become. I mean, she was a Green Party member, and now she's as right-wing as it gets.
Isn't that crazy? She was a member of Code Pink, and now she is in line with Republicans a majority of the time.
She's just been bought. That's the thing. She obviously doesn't have any of those convictions. None of them were ever real, if you can just be so easily swayed. And I think that it's funny the way she says, I was just saying that to Peter, it's funny the way she says, well, I don't want to spend that, as if it's coming out of her pocketbook. Like if you read the way that she's talking, it's like your kid's seeking an allowance raise and you're just not worth it. Like she's not, like whatever her stuff is. But it's interesting. Clearly it's her donors. Well, it's whoever she works for doesn't want to do that because they just doesn't serve them. That's why. Because it obviously isn't her. She doesn't
But
have any belief.
What's her deal? Like, why is she so eccentric?
Corporate special interest
She's just
money.
bought. She's a
Corporate
corporate
special interest
whore.
money.
So it's whatever her
there's one
donors
thing like voting, but the way she does it is like, you know, obviously the viral one when she like literally walks over like it's no big deal and then does the little curtsy and does the thumbs down.
I think that's just seeking clicks and seeking drama and just being the center of attention and thinking you're all that. And you know, she's another one of those women that I just think never properly had their ass kicked as a kid because they didn't grow up in my 70s in South Florida, or we would have dealt with this. Her, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and like there's a slew of them that just really never got their ass kicked sufficiently.
It's funny you say that because I just got up a Jacobin article about it, and apparently she grew up in like quite bad poverty and stuff, like no running water or electricity, and it's just like talking about like how anti-capitalist she was as well, and like working for Ralph Nader's like 2000 campaign and stuff. It's actually insane. And she was about my age when she did this, so I really hope, you know, nothing bad happens to me when I get to
I'm getting further left, and I just turned 50, so I'm moving to the left. I don't know if that helps you.
That's encouraging to see. No, you know, Kirsten Sinema was actually she was homeless at a time. So there's this massive cliff that we're about to go off of with the moratorium on evictions expiring. Yeah. And you'd think there would be at least some level of urgency, even for her own career, because she has constituents who are going to be affected by this too. But there's no concern whatsoever. And now what I think is kind of happening is whatever like prospect there was that she'd be reasonable is gone, because now she knows that even her own constituents, 66% of Arizona voters would support somebody else over her in a primary. So she's thinking, okay, if I'm going to survive this now, I really have to go to bat for my donors, because I'm not going to get money at all through, constituents. So I'm going to need super PACs to fund my campaign when, I'm up for re-election. And so maybe that's part of it. Also, I genuinely, and this is a little bit like reductionist, but I feel like she enjoys being evil, as many members of Congress do. Like when I look at people like her and Joe Manchin, I think these people are genuinely like sociopathic to not care during a pandemic about so many people suffering. We're on the brink of a major housing crisis. The Delta variant is ravaging communities already. People are going to need support. And now when the reconciliation bill could make a difference, expand healthcare, they're fighting against it. And as if it wasn't bad enough that there were members of Congress fighting this, there is an all-out war against Bernie Sanders, just his meager provision to expand Medicare coverage. The Americans for Prosperity, the Koch-funded network, is fighting against him doing that, saying that it's like a government takeover of healthcare. I've got news for Republicans. Medicare is something that the country overwhelmingly supports, and it was always controlled by the government. It's not like Medicare was this private company that was all of a sudden nationalized. It's always been a national program. So there's no takeover. But I mean, they throw out these buzzwords, throw everything at the wall in hopes that something will stick, and it's really infuriating to me. Like when I see this stuff, it really is. It's frustrating. I don't want to. I'll let other people jump in if you wanted to add to this before we move on.
Just again, it's all corporate special interest money. That is what defines our politics. Most of politics, in my opinion, is not complicated. It's just not. People are complicated for sure, but the overarching issues that we face really comes down to, we were just talking about this earlier. There are 100 senators on Capitol Hill, and only 2 of them do not have lobbyists knocking down their door: Rand Paul and Bernie Sanders, and that's it. Everybody else deals with this every day, hundreds of millions of dollars spent. And again, it's a great investment because what they spend and what they get out of it always works.
Oh, it's very cheap to buy a senator.
And in the case of, why we need to change the infrastructure, and for anybody who's near Nevada, I would just look at their model and what they did to take over the state party, because that's really what you need to do. So much of this problem is systemic, and it becomes this, what's the rotating villain. All right, so today it's Kirsten Sinema. Tomorrow it's Joe Manchin.
It's political theater.
The next day it's Dianne Feinstein, and then soon enough you'll boomerang it to whoever. It could be Kirsten Gillibrand. So it's this is how it works. And right now, she's taking on the heat because the truth is they don't want to give us anything. They want us to suffer because they like this idea of living high on the hog and looking down at the peasants, saying, "Hey, it's." That's why somebody like Sinema is a great example of that. Somebody who did come from very humble beginnings and really went through a lot, and then was ultimately able to climb the ladder, so to speak. But man, as soon as she got to the Senate, she turned fast. And that it didn't even, there was no like grace period. It was just like full on, whatever the corporate donors want, I'm doing it. And that's why we really need to hammer home this message of corporate special interest money. That is what is defining us, and especially the race with Nina Turner and her opponent, who I do not care to name. That's just a prime example of that. Nina is as grassroots funded as it gets, and her opponent is as corporate funded as it gets. It couldn't be more distinct in terms of the two candidates you're getting. And regardless of whether you think Nina's going to fight the way you want her to fight if she were to get there, she will damn sure fight a hell of a lot better than that other person if she were to get there, who will just be every other corporate Democrat that is on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, great points. And I agree with the political theater point that it is always like there's some scapegoat there. And Kyrsten Sinema effectively is a scapegoat. I mean, at the end of the day, Biden has the bully pulpit. If he really wanted to, he could exert a tremendous amount of pressure. He could offer, even pork barrel benefits if he's really desperate to try to get some, legislative concessions. But, if nothing gets accomplished, then it's like, well, my donors are happy and at least the American people think that we tried. I just want to know, I'm curious, what would President Donald Trump think about Kyrsten Sinema as a Democrat? Like, I wonder.
To ask this.
What would President Trump think?
Well, here's what I have to say about Kyrsten Cinematic. She's a lovely lady. She's a beautiful lady. Have you seen her? She's really incredible, really tremendous. And the great thing is that she told me in private that she'd vote for me if I ran in 2024. Isn't that incredible? That's great inside information.
She did.
Really great inside information. And that's why I'm totally considering running again. Because America. So Mike, I have the slogan. I've got the slogan. Tell me what you think. It's really great. It's really incredible.
Let's hear it.
America great again. I
love it.
Put it on a t-shirt. Put it on everything with Trump. Trump steak, Trump housing, Trump everything. It's really
MAGA.
The funniest is that he's wearing is that whoever it is wearing our t-shirt.
And the funny thing about him, and the biggest reason why I still think it's DeSantis in 24 and not Trump, is that if you really want to get to the crux of Trump's incompetency, as soon as COVID really took off, how is this guy, not this master marketeer salesman, not promoting MAGA masks? Put them on. We'll make America great again. Put the MAGA mask on, and we'll totally save lives, and we're totally getting reelected. That's all he had to do. I mean, it's really that simple. And how this guy can be that stupid, but he is.
Yeah. You know what? I wouldn't care if people were wearing MAGA masks as long as they're wearing masks. It's like masks. It's like, okay, just cover your germs. It's a pandemic. This comes along once every 100 years approximately, perhaps more due to the climate change, but I won't discuss that right now because I don't want to get too doomer. But I mean, like, just it's cloth. Let's do that. But I'm glad that you brought up Ron DeSantis, Peter, because that segues us into our next story. And this is really interesting to me. This has been, and I'm sure that the panel has a lot to say about this. Perhaps one of the worst governors in terms of handling COVID-19, but he finally did the right thing since Delta has come to Florida and it's ravaging communities all across the country and the globe right now. But he was called a sellout because he promoted vaccinations. Now, I just want to read a little bit of this before we start discussing this. So Florida's COVID crisis has wedged Governor Ron DeSantis, of all people, between two competing forces, public health experts who urge him to do more and anti-vaxxers who want him to do less. The Republican governor has come under attack from the medical community and Democrats as the Delta strain of COVID-19 sweeps through Florida, turning it into a national coronavirus hotspot. The state recorded more than 73,000 infections last week, 4 times as many as the start of July, leading to overcrowded hospitals and more than 300 deaths. In the most recent 7-day period, Florida is now home to 1 in 5 new cases of COVID-19 in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. But as DeSantis encourages vaccinations, he said vaccines are saving lives. He is facing a backlash from the anti-vaccination wing of his political base. It's the same group that praised him and helped thrust him onto the national stage for his hands-off approach to the virus. DeSantis, with 2024 presidential ambitions, has to walk the fine line between keeping his conservative base satisfied and keeping his state from becoming more of a disease hotspot. Now, it's not just Ron DeSantis who's facing backlash here. It is also the likes of Sean Hannity as well, who actually promoted vaccines on his show and then basically had to tepidly walk it back after receiving backlash. And, you know, if you go against what the right-wing base wants, they're going to make you pay for it. They're going to make you suffer. So, you know, it is nice to see at least some Republicans doing the right thing. It's interesting to me. I'm not sure if you all saw the headline about Mitch McConnell saying he's so perplexed as to why there's so much anti-vax sentiment in the Republican Party. I mean, I don't know, folks. Why would there be anti-vax sentiment in the Republican Party? You know, this is about Florida also, but before we get to the Floridians on the panel, who are my like correspondents for the Humanist Report and Dystopian Times and Florida issues, I do want to ask basically what the experience is in your area, because I live in a fairly liberal area. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and it's not really controversial to wear masks. It's not super controversial to get vaccinated. Like, I have a brother who's very conservative, but he's also vaccinated. But certain areas in the country, you know, it tends to change. Yeah. So first of all, I'll go to Amy. In your region, how is it? Like, I mean, this is a generalization. You can't possibly know everyone in your area, but like, if you walk into a store wearing a mask, do you feel like you're getting dirty looks, or is it just kind of like, because that's how I feel it is for me. Like, nobody really cares in my area.
Well, I'm in the hippy dippy liberal elitist California.
Coastal elite, Amy, just like me.
Yeah, so you get it. We're the coastal elite. Mm-hmm. There is a mandate where you have to wear masks indoors. It was reinstated, and barely did we get to a point where local laws were lifting mask mandates. So if I walked into a store without a mask, I would be getting all of the weird looks, right? Yep. That's just the way that it would be.
That's my experience as well. And when the mask mandate was lifted before Delta hit the United States, the first time when the mask mandates were lifted and I walked into the store, I was with my mom and we still had our masks on. And she's like, not a lot of people are wearing wearing masks. I mean, I guess it's fine. We're vaccinated. And I'm sure most people are. So we took off our masks and then it felt like I was naked, honestly. It's like, no, I want to go back to wearing the mask again. Like, it's still like the pandemic isn't over. So it felt weird. How about you, Lumi? What's your experience when you walk into a store with a mask?
So, first off, I moved from Indiana to DC, and then from DC to a place outside of DC, like 2-3 hours away, right? And from Indiana to DC, there was culture shock with masks. I had a lady almost like push me out of an elevator, and it was right when the pandemic was hitting, and I was so shocked because I wasn't even thinking about it. And that was embarrassing, but important. I'm glad. And I was so glad to be in that area. And then I moved out here. And just recently I had just finished my second shot. And I went into a smoke shop and I was talking to this guy and he had his mask off and I was kind of like shocked. And I was like, oh, I don't know exactly what I said, but I was like, oh, how'd your shot go? Or something like that. And he goes, I didn't get my shot. And I was like, oh, and then he looked around and no one had their masks on there. And he's like, I don't think any of us have gotten our shot. And I was like, anyway,
awkward.
Alright, I'm just gonna check out now. And so I just like talked a little bit about how mine had gone and tried to like smooth things over while still like, well, I got my shot. I'm really, excited to not have to worry about it without like coming off too harsh, because I'm like, everyone in here is like side-eyeing me at this point. I'm like, this is awkward. But yeah, no one wears their masks. It's taboo. It feels taboo. I've seen like maybe here and there a few, and it's even a shock to me to see someone else wearing their mask.
No kidding. So before we go to the UK, I've got to get the Floridians to weigh in on this. What's the? I know. So I've heard from individuals also from Florida, like Farron Cousins, friend of the show, who says that like when you walk into a store with a mask, all the eyes kind of turn to you, kind of like what Lumi was experiencing with vaccines when they were talking about that whole conversation. What is it like for you?
Yeah, actually, what's really interesting is I recently have driven. I spent a month in North Carolina, and so I drove and then drove back. And really, it's county dependent. If you live in a blue county, which is Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, and then I think there's a couple of others, you will see mostly mask. If you're in a red county, you'll see mostly not mask. Florida is a very like county-run type of state. So, and as you get further into other states, like when I got into Georgia and South Carolina, nobody was wearing masks. Nobody was wearing masks. And then once you come back into like Broward County, you've got your coastal elite thing again. And there you go. And everybody's got their masks on.
That's interesting.
But again, an issue like this should not be political. Like it doesn't need to be political. And this also gets back to the issue of Medicare for all and the fact that if we did have a universal healthcare system in place from the very beginning, this virus would never have spread the extent that it did, and hundreds of thousands of lives would have been saved. People would have died, yes. But in terms of
much more mitigated.
Yeah, like a good friend of ours who we do not know if he passed from COVID or not, he probably would be alive considering all the hell he put himself through.
He's someone who ended up having to pick up an older gentleman who was already on Medicare, whose cancer treatments weren't covered, and had to, when COVID hit, and had to pick up extra shifts driving an Uber. And I don't think he necessarily died from COVID, but he died because of the situation of just running himself ragged.
You know, we talk about like the rhetoric that you hear on TV. Forgive me for not remembering his name, but the Lieutenant Governor of Texas in particular. I remember when he went on national TV and basically said, "You're going to have to die for America because we can't shut down. We can't be giving people checks and we can't give them health care." And I'm just thinking, yeah, there it is. Because they're going to, and that to me, that's like on the level of Governor Cuomo being accessory to murder with all of the nursing homes.
Yeah.
Like that's how.
Well, it's people are expendable.
Yeah.
That's the message.
Right.
It's expendable.
Like that's what you could, the one thing you could say about DeSantis is that he's reckless, but he was somebody who was never going on TV and telling people to be reckless. And I will give him that. But there are ones that are out there that absolutely had a hand in this. There's no question that they did. And Trump is certainly, as guilty as anybody because he absolutely could have made that difference. One thing that I will say about DeSantis, he has one of the most, if not the best political team around him. The only moves he makes are moves that are net positives. So if he's out there right now telling people to get the vaccine, that means that there is enough of the probably independent voter base that thinks that that's an important issue. So he's going to push it because
he's running for president.
He 1,000% is running for president. And with the way that, the Biden presidency is going now, and as Amy alluded to, if we ultimately see this catastrophic housing crisis allowed to happen at such a monumental scale, it's not a question of if, but a question of who from the GOP is going to be the next president. And in my opinion, right now, Ron DeSantis is the next president.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that about the net positive because I was trying to figure out the logic because it seems like it's political suicide at this point if you try to even be somewhat reasonable when it comes to, vaccines, hence Sean Hannity walking back his stance. And so what I wanted to ask Cav, because it's so different in the UK, hopefully anyways, but you'll give us some more insight, is are there any politicians, and it's a little bit different system structured differently, but is there any political incentive whatsoever to be anti-vax or to be anti-mask in the UK?
Just before I get started, I'm glad you gave me a platform to talk about vaccinations and masks and COVID. I haven't touched this stuff on my own channel because YouTube is so you're pretty brave because YouTube are so zealots about this stuff. They'll ban your channel so quick. So I barely talk about this stuff. But yeah, in the UK, no mainstream politician, I'm trying to think of just some weird maybe Tories from like up north or like the Midlands, no politician has really come out as anti-vax. It's generally considered, like with a lot of things in the UK, things are more acceptable in terms of like masks and vaccines. The science is just accepted in a lot of places. There's a fringe, and it's an anti-authoritarian, often pro-fascist fringe, which are anti-mask, anti-vaccine. You see this in the US as well. But I think the only good thing about I don't even know if it's a good thing, but basically the Republicans have taken the steam out of the fascist movements pushing this stuff. But I read a report about Europe really suffering from these anti-mask, anti-lockdown, anti-vaccine groups because it's really given a rise in fascism, but it's not sometimes under the mask of anti-authoritarianism. And I've actually seen a lot of young people share anti-vax stuff saying, don't be a part of a human experiment and stuff. And I was a pharmaceutical journalist for about a year. So I've covered like clinical trials, and the fact that like these people think that these companies, if you don't trust anything, trust human greed. These companies, pharmaceutical companies, are some of the biggest companies in the world. They pump trillions of dollars into clinical trials for products, and it's just one little thing from the FDA can set them back and destroy all this work. So trust human greed that these pharmaceutical companies are not putting. You're not a human experiment. The technology for this stuff has existed, for decades, because coronaviruses have been around for ages. There was a big one in 2004. I think there was one before as well. So if I just want to use my platform quick, that's one thing I want to say, because I see that sentiment. But the mainstream discourse is whether you are Tory, whether you are Lib Dem, whether you are Labour, most people are getting the vaccines. But the main thing is, and this is the problem, and you guys have it in America, because minority populations have often been used in medical experiments, especially by the West, they are automatically skeptical. So there's a big one here because the UK has quite a prominent Muslim and Pakistani population. Because the CIA used a fake polio vaccination team to find out where bin Laden is, this has led to a massive rise of conspiracy theories that it's actually vaccines generally are a plot by Israel to sterilize Muslims, right? And that's the sort of, when you make people distrust power, that's the sort of stuff that goes on, because you just say, well, look what they did to bin Laden. They use this vaccination team. It's in Afghanistan as well. You have this sort of logic. So lots of minorities do not trust the vaccine. And I have a lot of sympathy for them, because minorities are dying at higher rates, because often in the UK, they're migrants from poor countries. So they're doing the jobs like you were saying about Uber drivers. And that's sort of like the untold story of the pandemic. We're not all like working at home, having a great time, Zoom chats with our friends. Lots of people work for the entire thing. And service workers, I think it was like chefs and stuff in America, disproportionately died. And that's just like this slow killing of the population is something in both countries. And it's frustrating, like you're saying, these anti-vax movements that are spreading anti-mask, although it's not got as big of a political element in the UK, there's a very strong undercurrent in some sections of youth. And it really goes with poverty and education, because, you don't trust the system. You're not educated on how vaccines work and how health things work. But yeah, that's the difference to the UK and the US. There isn't a political party staking their reputation, stoking the flames of anti-mask. It's usually fringe elements, but I feel like as people are getting more frustrated with lockdowns because our government have handled it so badly, and you guys probably haven't experienced it. I think LA has been quite bad. We've had lockdowns where you literally cannot do anything. We've had that twice for like 3 and 4 months each. Like, you can't do anything. You're not even allowed to go outside, and that's the whole country. And I think that's added to people being like, basically, like, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, fuck your lockdowns, fuck your masks. I've been cooped up for 8 months out of like 15. I'm not doing this. And that's just, like I'm saying, if a government does not handle something like this properly, you only have a certain window where the population will comply. And I feel like that's why I was so frustrated about the US getting rid of the mask mandate. You're not going to make people do it again, really. Like, I feel like it's gone. You basically told them, double vaccination, you're all good. Go do whatever you want. But now it's like, oh, wait, the Pfizer's only 40% to stop transmission. And now it's, you're saying the Delta variant is spreading. And that's just, I feel like the genie is out of the bottle. We can't do this again. And because we were saying before about the collectivization of certain societies in Asia, maybe where they will wear masks anyway without COVID, I think the US and the UK are pretty screwed, because we do have this more individualist mindset. And I think people are just sick of it now. And I can't blame certain people. I know, like, we're all like responsible and smart, and we'll wear our masks and get our vaccines and stuff. But I can't blame certain people now of just being sick of like this stuff and being so confused. If you have incompetent governments, Trump and Boris, and they fucked you about so much, you feel like you can't trust anyone anymore. So it's a frustrating thing just seeing this like happen across like the West in general. Yeah, and there's this issue with people.
I mean, there's this anti-intellectual sentiment in the United States, and perhaps, to a degree, it's true for the UK as well. And people are right to be skeptical of, government, because government has screwed them. I mean, we've been talking about housing on this show and how, we're going to go off a cliff pretty soon when it comes to evictions. So people are correct to, doubt these large, multi-billion-dollar companies who just care about profit. They don't necessarily prioritize people. So, for example, like when it comes to anti-vax, I've even seen people who purport to be on the left say, well, I'm anti-vax because I'm anti-big pharma. But it's frustrating because you have to extend your thinking beyond big pharma bad. You have to try to understand the structures. And I think that what you said, Cav, is really important about understand that these companies want to make a profit. So I tried to pose the question to somebody who said they were a left-wing anti-vaxxer because I was falsely claiming that it was right-wing, and they were mad about that. Now, basically, if you're Pfizer, what's going to be more profitable? You quickly release this vaccine that's poison or ineffective, and you get it out to millions of people, and then people find out, they start dropping dead, and then you go bankrupt, there's repercussions, or you make a really, really, really good vaccine, and then you try to be the sole manufacturer throughout the globe of that vaccine. What's better? That's the way that it works. And so you have to really explain these things to people because, the thinking is usually like bumper sticker or sloganeering thinking, right? Just like big pharma bad, fuck capitalism. We all hate capitalism, but it's like you can't not participate in capitalism. So like my nephew, for example, I made a joke on Twitter, like, well, I'm gonna have to tell my nephew that he's a big pharma shill because he buys his insulin every month and he's just padding their pockets. Like, we can't not participate in capitalism, unfortunately, right? So we have to understand and be smart and astute and understand the structural things here, which is why I really appreciate, the commentary from individuals like Amy, who really explains the underlying conditions when it comes to housing, and, people who go out of their way to explain the really root causes here, because we can't just be surface level. And it's hard because these are really complicated things, especially when it comes to vaccines. I'm not a medical person. I am completely out of my league here. I could barely pronounce epidemiologist. This is not my forte. Yeah. But at the same time, from the political angle, it is important that we all kind of jump in and explain to people that, this isn't just one of those big pharma bad situations. Yes, big pharma is bad, albeit for completely different reasons, not because they want to poison you. Yeah, go ahead, jump in, Cap.
Can I just add to that? One thing about being a pharmaceutical journalist, and I was doing it, is big pharma is literally one of the most evil things on the planet. I'm not joking. Right. It is one of the most evil. Janssen and the baby powder that gave women cancer. You have tons, OxyContin with the Sackler family basically face no consequences. It's a sick industry. But these are publicly traded companies. And from following the industry when they were developing these vaccines, when they would hit snags with the FDA or snags with the European Commission, their stock price would tank. And that's what I'm talking about, the greed incentive. If these vaccines suddenly turn around and were killing people, doing all this awful shit to them, their stock price would absolutely tank. It happened in the UK with a vaccine I think we had against bird flu. There was something wrong with it, and it destroyed that business. So these companies are basically, they're so careful and they pump so much money because one snag, and especially with something like this where we're all getting it, it's not just like a treatment for a rare disease, we're all getting this. If it started really affecting people short term, their whole company would be fucked because people would just not buy the stock anymore. And people pay a lot of money to just get investor knowledge on these companies themselves. So as much as I hate capitalism, I hate big pharma, I do trust these companies are so fucking greedy, they're not going to risk their share price on the Wall Street Stock Exchange by giving people shitty products. And they'll also remember Operation Warp Speed. These companies are also massively embed with the US government itself. Mm-hmm. And think about how that would look if the US government is helping ship Pfizer vaccines around the world and it just fucks with people. Again, it doesn't make any sense from a business standpoint. Looking into the science, of course, it doesn't make any sense, but there's two different dimensions you can come at it. So I just want people to keep that in mind. I hate big pharma. It's one of the worst things. I don't think most people even realize how evil it is besides the popular headlines. But yeah, just trust these companies are also just absolutely greedy and have so many investors. They're not going to basically fuck you over with a vaccine.
Right, exactly. Well, folks, I'm getting so many comments about people jumping in. Oh my God, I love AmyeC3 and Kavernacle. Oh my God, LumiRue. Oh my God, Jen. It's like all of your fans are congregate. That's incredible. So, folks, that is basically the end of the show. But hopefully, everyone who tuned in from the Humanist Report, you will go and follow all of these lovely individuals, because this is this is all about building solidarity on the left. If you tune into the Daily Wire, which you never should do ever, or Steven Crowder, they're always cross-pollinating. They bring on other right-wingers, but we don't do that as much on the left. Twitch is a little bit different. I'm newer on the Twitch side, and I do see more collaboration, but on YouTube we don't do that as much, and I really want to change that. So I really hope that everyone will follow these incredible creators to their respective platforms. But before we do that, we will let them all make their pitch. Amy, tell us what you do, where to go to find you, and how we can support you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an amazing conversation. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/AmyeC3. I stream almost every day, talk about housing, destigmatizing homelessness. I'm starting to write articles on Substack, and I'm about to launch my housing news show, actually starting next week. So I'm going to be filming that live on Twitch and then uploading those videos onto YouTube. So really busy trying to get really active in sharing my knowledge of housing and getting more people involved and know what's going on, because housing affects everyone, whether you realize or not. You are most likely paying way too much for your rent. You're either experiencing tenant exploitation from your landlord. Property ownership is inherently theft anyway, so that's something that anybody can serve to learn more about and learn how to protect yourself if you are a tenant, or look to broaden your horizons, join a coalition, fight for your housing rights, fight for your community even. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more about any of these topics, you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter, and subscribe to my new YouTube channel that I don't have yet, but I will soon.
Hey, we'll feature you. And we'll have it on the show.
Okay, thanks. I would love that.
Yeah. Okay, so the next person I'm going through. Thank you so much, by the way, to my mod, Mr. Anderson, who's bringing up the links. Please make sure that you take advantage of that, folks, now if you're watching live. But we have... before I forget, thank you again, Mr. Anderson. This is Amy's Substack article. Please check that out. Very important. Much. Okay, so the next is Jen and Peter.
So our show is Generational Change, and our mission is transforming politics into service. And we do, we do lives twice a week, Monday and Thursday nights at 8:00 Eastern time. We do long form interviews with guests. We generally start off with a candidate in the beginning, now that we're in the season. And really, we're dealing with issues. So it could be housing, it could be environmental, it could be criminal justice. It's just different things. We get a lot of authors, just different stuff. But we do cover current things and have somewhat of an entertainment play on stuff. So, and he's the person who knows where everyone can find us.
Yeah, I saw that it was posted in the chat, but obviously GenFL23, that's for Instagram and for Twitter. Generational Change on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, and generationalchange.com, which gives you just about everything. And one more person does want to say hello, just to let everybody show some appreciation.
Are you doing that? Wait. You haven't done. I
don't have to.
Okay. All right.
I just want to say that I really think you're all doing a really wonderful job. We did start a political revolution 5 years ago. The Humanist Report was small then. It's big now. It's going to get bigger. And make sure that you support Lumi, Amy, and the Kavernacle. Great shows, but of course, Generational Change, great show as well. Keep spreading the word. I'm doing what I can on the Hill. It's a lonely place to be, but we are going to get that $3.5 trillion special reconciliation bill. You're not going to be suffering for too long, and that Kristen Sinema is going to get quite a talking to for me. That's all.
Oh my God, it's like almost scary. It's so real.
Well, the only one he didn't do, he's got one more. The only one he hasn't done is he does Bill Clinton.
And we've got some ladies.
I kind of want to see Bill. I've seen your Bill Clinton before, but I think that
I want to say it.
We've got to see it here.
Exactly, it's good. Hold on.
I just want to say you two ladies are absolutely lovely, and I had to come on here and absolutely say how much I appreciate you being here.
Oh my
I'm
God.
sitting in the background and just, kind of minding my own business. But if you ever know what it's like to live with Hillary for as many years as I have, I got to get away whenever I can. And, that was a great story in Arkansas you brought up earlier. Don't ask, don't tell. Just let people live in
Oh my
their
God.
It's all good.
So good.
Oh my God.
Mike, you got all four.
That's
in one
all
shot.
four.
That's the
Well,
first time I've ever done that in one shot.
I feel
And
like-
could
like,
see
so
Louis,
privileged to have-
literally, I guess I did a real, too good of a
He's
job.
slimy,
because
right?
she's literally cringing at me. Yeah, that does sound like
As you were doing that, my skin was like crawling.
He'll sit down and he'll be like this, and he'll be like, oh God, what can I do to get it with you and not with Hillary? And all it's so slimy and gross.
Well, like I said, it becomes a method thing. Like you
He's
have to
in it.
immerse yourself in the
That's why I
character. You
prefer
gotta be
Bernie.
in it.
Bernie is the only one that I feel like I can be in a safe space.
Because Bernie is wholesome, and there's no
Bernie's not
sliminess. Yeah.
touchy-feely. He's grumpy and crabby,
I
and
am
that
a
I
wo-
can do.
I am a one-woman guy.
I
love
don't care.
Jane, and she's
I
a-
prefer grumpy and crabby to touchy and feely. So
I just gotta get Bernie to see the impression one time.
Yeah, we'd love him to see it.
Oh my God. Well, hopefully he will.
good.
I'll send
So
this
guys,
to
check
Kyle,
us
who
out.
had.
We do all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much, by the way, for coming. And links are up on the screen. They'll also be in the description box if you're watching on Means TV. Please follow it on the screen right here. And we have a third guest. What?
Well,
From your. Wow.
See, the patrons get a Lulu sticker. So if you sign up on the Patreon, you get the Lulu sticker.
How do you get a sticker of your dog? What?
Okay, first of all, it isn't. I just found one on Canva that looks exactly like her.
Oh, okay.
And then I put a generational change collar on it.
Oh, okay. Because I
It's
love my
cool,
dog,
though,
and
right?
if there were dog stickers that I haven't found out about that I could order for my dogs, that'd be great. I literally am one of those crazy people who has my dog's face tattooed on my body.
Actually, if you get a caricature of your dog, then you could turn anything into a sticker on Canva. So you could get someone to do a full caricature of your dog, and that could be your sticker. I just happened to find one that basically, the resemblance.
Yeah, that's
is
like
uncanny.
that is uncanny. Wow.
I know.
Oh, and Lumi just brought in another.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
They can be
That
friends.
looks like a panda bear cub.
Oh.
She
Well,
just got a fur cut today too.
What kind of dog is that?
She's a Shih Tzu.
Oh, I have one of those too, but she's not as part of the show.
oh.
Lulu's the star.
Lulu's the Catan de Toulier.
They always are the stars. They take over the streams. Once you get a dog cam, it is officially your dog show.
Yep.
And
She
I've
usually
learned
makes
that.
a couple of appearances and then she'll settle back down, but she likes to be seen and then she'll go mind her business.
Yes. And dogs
Smart.
make life better.
Yeah.
And they're a nice therapeutic addition to the show when you talk about very terrible things. All right,
and the last thing I will say, and it's definitely one of the things that I do think really speaks a lot in the worst way about Trump. He was the first president not to have a dog in the White House.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I forgot about that. That does say a lot about his character. If you don't like dogs, then
there's something wrong with you.
You should be ejected from the planet. Absolutely. All right. Kavernacle, tell us where to find you, what you do, and how we can support you.
Yeah, sure. So someone asked in the chat, what's with the chocolate oranges? Basically, in January, someone maybe came up with this idea. For every 5K, we get a new chocolate orange. I'm heading towards 40. So if you want to help me get to this goal, and I promise if I get to 100K by the year, which isn't going to happen, I'll melt all these down and make like some sort of sick broth, because they've been standing here for months. They're probably really disgusted. But basically, I'm a bit different from Mike because we're talking strictly about politics. I never talk about this stuff on my own channel. I'm too scared to talk about COVID and stuff. I don't want my channel to get banned. I mainly focus on anti-capitalist stuff, but from like an entertainment perspective a lot of the time. I call it like internet politics. Someone called me like the leftist answer to the quartering. I wouldn't go that far. I'm not like trash, but that is kind of like the mindset. That's kind of the mindset you can go into my channel with. History stuff, politics stuff as well. And yeah, so subscribe to my channel, The Kavernacle. If you just want to search for anything, like The Kavernacle is like my name on everything because it's quite unique. So I got the brand and everything. So Twitter and Instagram as well. And yeah, support me on Patreon. I live stream twice a week as well, on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And I upload on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. And yeah, just thanks so much for everyone coming on. I had a really good conversation. And Mike, super appreciate you having me on again. And like I said loads of times, very high quality production. Must be a nightmare.
Oh, thank you.
Like organize.
Yes, but I mean, it's my personality is very like, obsessive compulsive, color coordinated. So it, even if I was lazy, I try to like put in some level of effort. So thank you for noticing, though. That does mean a lot. And I'm glad that you said that about the oranges. I wanted to, because I was like, are you going to eat those?
Yeah, well, basically, these bottom ones were like really rare for like a month. Like you literally couldn't find them in the UK. My girlfriend's parents gave me them, and then they became part of this pyramid straight away. So I'm never going to eat them, which is sad because they're like a really rare addition.
Those are really good.
Yeah, I actually love them. I buy them for myself, but then I don't think I can really touch these. But I did promise my subscribers if we hit 100K miraculously by the end of the year, I will eat them on stream. I don't know how sick I'm going to be if I do that, but that's the promise. Otherwise, it will just slowly keep building, and we'll see how far I get. I don't know how far I'm going to grow, to be honest. If I get to your size, Mike, it will be like the whole background chocolate orange. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, those it's nice to see those. I was wondering, do you eat them when you hit like 50K or what? But 100K, that's a lot of chocolate oranges. I do like those. My mom was a fan of those, and she got me hooked as a kid to those.
Yeah, I love them.
All right, LumiRue, tell us where to go to find you, what you do, and how we can support you.
You can find me on twitch.tv/LumiRue, on Instagram and Twitter. You just add LUV to the end of LumiRue and you're there. I also have a TikTok that I'm going to get moving on. So
right on.
I'm hoping to get on that. I talk about a wide variety of issues. I come to the left as from the perspective of an intersectional feminist. And so while I do focus in pretty heavily on gender, things like men's liberation, non-binariness, and, just the whole everything around gender, sexual liberation is something we're going to be getting into. We also like to have people on, especially lately, like Amy, experts in their field that can come in and give us a lot of knowledge, just drop a ton of information on us so I can dig in, learn from those experts in their field, whether they be people like Amy or people like Rocket Sage, who focuses on geology. So that's me. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed it. And everyone, it was lovely meeting everyone. So
yeah, folks, this has been so much fun. Such an incredible panel. As Mr. Anderson says, get to subscribing, everyone. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I don't have my outro queued up. Folks, I will be back to read any comments, super chats, thank new members and subs. I will see you all next week. I'm thinking, should I give them a preview of some of the guests? I have another pretty stacked line. No, I'm going to make you wait. It's going to be a very good panel. Somebody who rhymes with Murney Panders.
Ooh.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, come on.
I was thinking I'll bring Peter on and I'll have to role play as Bernie the whole time.
Put me on audio and people might be convinced that it's actually Bernie.
Yeah.
That's possible. All right, folks. Well, I will see you all next week. Thank you so much to my panel, folks. This has been Dystopian Times. Well, folks, that was an incredible show. Thank you so much again to all of my guests. Give me 1 second. So I realized that I haven't logged on to YouTube in a while. So I need to do that before I can pull up the super chats here. Thank you all so much. Again, please do not forget to subscribe to all of my guests. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to log in. Okay. I don't remember my password, though. Oh, okay. I got it. Never mind. It would be a pretty bad thing if I were locked out of my YouTube channel during a live stream, but it's totally possible that could happen to me. Okay. Give me 1 sec. I'm trying to confirm it. I'm getting my verification code, folks. Hang on a second. I'm trying to do this without doxing myself in the process. Okay, hang on. I got a text from Nina Turner. Fuck off, Siri. Oh my God. Does anybody else hate Siri? I might have to go get my phone. Hang on a second, folks. Let me pull up my text. Oh, never mind. Give me 1 second. See, I would have had this queued up had my laptop not crashed midstream. There we are. Nope. No, okay. Nope, there we are. So the week before, what was it? I like knocked off my little unicorn thing, the light that I had, and then this week I like my entire laptop crashes. There's always at least one thing that goes wrong during a live stream. Okay, I'm pulling up the live stream thing, and okay, another verification thing. Jesus Christ. It's good that there's all this security, right? But are you serious? My watch just froze now. Oh my God, what is with technology? I swear to God, like, do I have like some sort of electromagnetic fucking thing that I'm like shooting out onto my devices? Oh my God, I'm so mad. It's restarting. Why do I have to? I don't understand why I have to. Oh, I have to continue my session. Oh my God. You'll have to talk to each other in the chat and entertain each other. Or how about this? While I'm trying to get this all put together, share your mask stories. Like, how is it in your area? Do you get dirty looks if you walk into a grocery store wearing a mask? Oh, there's some crystals to fix that. Oh. Yeah, I need something. Something is oh, okay. Okay. I'm texting myself. Getting the verification code. Okay, now I think I can get in. Hey, we did it. Okay. Okay, so I think we caught up. I got all the super chats. It says no new super chats. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. So then, yeah, since we can't see the super chats, we'll just go ahead and go straight to non-super chat questions. Let me see. Okay, yeah, I think we got everything. Well, that was all for nothing. Jesus. All right, folks. Shoot me your questions if you have any. I'll take a couple before bouncing. This is a longer show. Hey, next up. You are very welcome. You are very welcome. Hopefully you got some subscribers during the stream. Yeah, I got everything. Welp, as I had to do like 2 different verifications as my watch crashes as I'm trying to like get the text message, and then it's like there's nothing. That was all pointless. Oh, what's my favorite anime? Attack on Titan, hands down. Second favorite is Demon Slayer. Third favorite, Death Note. Fourth favorite, Parasite. Fifth favorite, Hunter x Hunter. Although I'm kind of in the middle of that, so I can't necessarily say. Winston says, did you see Door on Rogan Fearmonger about vaccines? I saw the video, but I didn't watch the video. I just saw the title, and it made me want to die seeing that go out to like lots and lots of people. So, yeah. Probably not. I don't think he's happy with me. Hey, we've got a super sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And also, by the way, Crouching Dragon, a brand new member. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Oh, no. So I did not see Bo Burnham's Inside. I totally spaced that. I was going to watch that while I was off for a week. I didn't watch it. Shit. I didn't even think about it. I'm sorry. I will have to make up for that. I will have to watch that. How do we convince disillusioned gays that Buttigieg sucks? All my friends love him. This is something that we're going to have to work on. I don't know, honestly. It is really difficult because I feel like hating Pete Buttigieg is one of the unwritten rules of homosexuality. Like, immediately once you realize that you're gay, like, the rules get downloaded into your head. And one of the first rules, it's in like the top 5, is you must hate Pete Buttigieg. Do not thirst over shitty people. Love your content. I listen to all your episodes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Mountain Juggernaut Energy. I love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Would you ever have Amazing Atheist or Paul's Ego on the show? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not super familiar with Paul's Ego, but I've watched Amazing Atheist for more than 10 years. More than 10 years. When I was first becoming an atheist, I found his channel. I actually found his channel through Mr. Shy City, who was a different YouTuber way back in the day. I'm not sure if anyone remembers him, but he did like a YouTube exposed video, and he did a shout out to Amazing Atheist, and that's how I found Amazing Atheist. Oh, got a conspiracy theory about the Kavernacle. I bet Cav's chocolate orange boxes are empty and he's playing us. That's possible. Or like he'll switch it out when he reaches 100K, and then he has to buy new chocolates, and you think that he's eating the old ones, but no. Just tell them the rat took a DC job to sell out Bernie. Indeed. Let's see here. Okay, going through Death Note. Yeah, I love Death Note, and I love the soundtrack for Death Note. So good. Basically, any anime soundtrack is good, with the exception of My Hero Academia and Hunter x Hunter. I do not like the soundtracks for those. Walker Small. Thank you so much, Walker. I appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Darth, how's it going? Thoughts on the California recall? You know, I'm not too familiar with it. I haven't followed Californian politics for a very long time. But I think that it's making Gavin Newsom actually try to do better because he's afraid he's going to get recalled. I'm not sure. I'll have to tune in. I'm not following it enough to know what the stats are. I assume he's probably not going to get recalled because recalling a governor is very difficult, but we'll see. Ranch Panda, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. What do you do to unwind? I play video games. I really like to play video games and listen to podcasts. If I could play like a video game or like an RPG where I'm just kind of grinding away and listen to a podcast in the background, then I'm happy, super happy. Will fall. That's so kind of. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You're my favorite. What do you think of? What do you think? And will you buy General Mark Milley, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff's book? No, I never read those kind of books. If I'm going to read a book, it's going to be on theory or something that I don't know about yet. I haven't read an entertaining book, like a novel, for quite some time. The last one I read was Artemis by the author who wrote The Martian. I cannot remember his name, but I kind of switched. Like I don't finish books, so I started reading, A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. Jumped back to Professor Richard Wolff. Then I jumped back to Marx again. I'm not reading Marx specifically, but I'm reading or rereading the Marx Engels Reader. I haven't read that since I was in college, and so I got the digital version, and it's all like, even though I feel like I already know Marx's arguments for the most part, you always learn more rereading it again. Like it always really helps. I do. I have an Oculus Quest and a PSVR, actually. Yeah. Have you watched Mr. Robot? Kavernacle says it is his favorite TV show, and if you look at his YouTube profile pic, it is of Mr. Robot. Oh, I didn't realize that. I watched the first season of Mr. Robot, and I can't remember if I even finished the second season. I think I started watching the second season, but I do need to go back to it because I'm in a bit of a show hole. So, yeah. Oh, Tara Reid published a book about her life. I think I saw that. Yeah, so I don't usually read autobiographies. I even tried to read Bernie's book, and I stopped after a couple of chapters. Like it was interesting. Like, I'm sure that Tara Reid's book is really interesting too. Especially, her experience, but I tend to gravitate more towards like either history and also I need to catch up on the deficit myth as well. I'm all over the place. I need to like stop and just finish a book before moving on to another one. Yeah. You have a VR set, you're truly part of the 1%. Exactly. The thing about VR is that it's still super niche. I mean, it's changed a lot, and the accessibility has improved with Oculus Quest, but there's just not a lot of games for VR. So there needs to be more. Mr. Anderson says, in playing Breath of the Wild, is it better to use the two smaller controllers separated in each hand or the Pro controller? 1000% the Pro controller. 1000%. So I'm playing through Skyward Sword right now, and it makes I'm really loving it. I want to go back and play Breath of the Wild, but the separated Joy-Cons, I hate it so much. I cannot. I don't know what it is about it. It's just really uncomfortable, and the controls, like with the Pro controller for Skyward Sword, are really bad. Like you have to use the thumbstick to flick the sword in certain ways. And for whatever reason, like that works okay, but then operating the view simultaneously, like where you have to hold down, I think it's the left bumper, it's really like, it just doesn't feel natural. So I went to motion controls, and yeah, I'm not like, I hate motion controls. I'm 100% Pro controller. Got the title saved. The Joy-Cons do feel, they do. It feels like I'm either gonna crush them or like fling it. I've got that title saved, and I'm sure I'll find it in my local bookstore. Oh, okay, different combo, but a book. Just got my Pro controller. Hell yeah. Yeah, the Pro controller, honestly, it's, if you have a Nintendo Switch, it's the best thing to purchase because it's the most comfortable and the battery life lasts for a very long time. Yeah, Walker agrees. Controller is the only way, period. 1000%. Are you excited for PSVR 2? I don't know. I don't think I'm going to jump into that right away. I'm curious to see what it is, but it's probably going to be really expensive. And I don't think I'm going to play it enough to justify like that price tag. We'll see. I am curious to know how they improve the technology, though, for sure. So let's see here. I do have a business email, Mountain Juggernaut Energy, but I don't actually do any sponsorships. I haven't done them for a while, but it depends on what it is, but I prefer to not do sponsorships if at all possible. To that point, I think we're still at least we're in a good spot. So I don't want to do sponsorships right now, but I really appreciate the offer though, for sure. Yeah, I agree with this. The separated Joy-Cons were not muscle. It feels so weird, especially when you're like trying to hold, like if you're holding it and then you need to like move your finger from like the thumbstick to like the buttons. It's frustrating. But aside from the control issues, I do like Skyward Sword. It's a really fun game and it's really pretty. Yes, I will in fact be on Twitch tomorrow. In fact, I'm planning a pretty big episode of Twitch. I've got a lot of topics that I want to talk about that I didn't cover on the show for the Humanist Report. And also I'm going to do the 300 episode special. So I will be reacting to old Humanist Report videos. I should say cringing to old Humanist Report videos, including the very first video that I uploaded. Because I haven't watched it in years, and it would be curious to kind of see like the evolution of the show at this point in time. So yeah, for sure. All right, folks. Well, I think that's it. I am going to see what's wrong with my laptop. Oh, okay, restarted. So it's good. It's not dead. I was hoping that my laptop wouldn't like completely shit the bed, but it just crashed. But yeah, it's going to be a big episode special. And as Ashley Luna says, baby Mike, to see myself without a beard is so strange. So that's a good question. On this computer that I'm on, I never upload. I upload on a different computer that I edit on, or that my husband edits on. So this computer, I usually only pull it up to record the audio for the YouTube show. And also I'll control like this background right here. And that's basically it. And that's what this computer does. Or, I could do interviews and stuff like that. You and Kyle should react to, let me pull it up, to each other's first videos. Yeah, I actually did. I not on camera, but I watched his first video when he watched his first video. Yeah, so my husband edits basically everything that goes on YouTube. Like 95%. I edit sometimes. If there's like a video that I record and I think this one is pretty fucked up. Like, I don't know if I'm making cogent points. I don't know if I'm being concise enough. I'll edit it myself just so I don't, give him too much to try to touch up. And there might be articles that I want to overlay as B-roll to like provide additional context if I wasn't concise enough, because I don't have a script. I have bullet points on my iPad. I have quotes from like articles that I read, but everything that I film is like completely just off the cuff. I mean, it's not like I'm unprepared. I am prepared. I'm very prepared before filming, but it's sometimes I'm not on. I don't do my best. So I try to edit the really shitty ones, but for the most part, I think that he is the better editor for sure. 100% the better editor. So who's the voice behind the OG intro? So it's two different people. I can't remember the name of the two dudes who did the OG intro, but they're both radio announcers, and I found them through Fiverr, believe it or not, and they do really great work. Yeah. My husband is, without him, the show would be so much shittier. And he does a lot. Oof. Eben says, evictions in Multnomah County went from like 14 in June to 100 in July. Yeah, I know someone in Multnomah County who is not evicted yet, but in a very bad place. And I don't even know what to say. Like, when you talk about these stories that are so bad. Yeah, best husband. Ooh. When you talk about these stories that are so like depressing, it's so, I don't know what to say sometimes. I'm a political commentator and I'm supposed to like provide you with commentary, but I don't know. Sometimes you're just at a loss for words. Do you think this will be the last question that I take for the night because I am pooped? Do you think the left needs to rely less on any single politician and more on collective power, like running for office and getting legislation on the ballot simultaneously? I think all of the above. I think that there needs to be basically a multi-pronged approach, an inside-outside strategy, all of the above. Basically, whatever we are able to do, we should definitely try for sure. For sure. It's nice to have a coworker that's your significant other too. That really does help, because when you're with your coworkers, you can complain about the job, and me and my husband can complain about the job, but we're kind of our own bosses here. So yeah. Thanks, Mike. Much love. Really appreciate that, Josh. Yeah. See, I'm starting to slur my speech. I'm too tired. All right, folks. I hate filming in here because these lights cook my fucking brains. Like, Jesus Christ, it is so hot. I will see you all later, folks. Take care. This was such an incredible show tonight. I'll see you all later, folks.